Athelhampton House is a Tudor manor house in Dorset in southwest England. In 2019, Giles Keating became its new owner, and one of his first restoration projects was to return the kitchen back to its Elizabethan origins.
Give it a good stir, and then 10-15 minutes, hopefully we can try it.
And then it's lovely and thick.
Looking for ways to live in a more sustainable and cost-efficient way in a historic house is a challenge. But at Athelhampton, this challenge has been met in a new and revolutionary way.
You would never guess that these were here. I couldn't see them from anywhere in the garden. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Athelhampton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Welcome to the drawing room here at Mapperton. And this is really the Tudor wing of the house. It was built in 1540s. And in this episode, I'm actually visiting a rather similar and wonderful Grade 1 listed 15th century gem of a Tudor manor house. And it's located in the heart of Dorset. Athelhampton is about 30 minutes from Mapperton. And do you know what's crazy is that I have actually never visited Athelhampton. So I'm really excited to see it because it is an extraordinary Tudor building. And if you're like me and you love the history of these buildings, well, you're gonna love this house. But what is even more fascinating is that the owner, Giles, actually bought Athelhampton in 2019. So it's not one of these houses that's been in the family for hundreds of years. So I'm really excited to see what he's done with Athelhampton, and personally, I feel that these new historic house homeowners bring their own inspiration and they inject new energy and ideas into these houses. But first, of course, I am really keen to hear more about the history of Athelhampton. Hello.
Julie,
hello.
Great to see you.
So nice
Hi.
to see you. I've finally made it after all these years.
It's so good that you're here, I know.
It's brilliant. So I was just walking up, of course, I've seen Athelhampton photographed, all that, but now I'm here in the flesh. I'd love for you to just tell me a little bit about the fabric of the building. Is that
would be
okay?
a pleasure,
I know it's
yes.
cold, so we won't stay out too long.
Let's come and do it. Let's go for it. So,
Okay.
So here we
It's
are.
beautiful.
Yep. Now, the way I always like to describe this is this part here is the older part, 1485. So the wars of the end of the Wars of the Roses, Henry VII, the first Tudor.
My goodness.
And then over there, you've got what I call the modern extension, built about 60 years later, the start of Queen Elizabeth I's reign.
Right.
They got a bit of money from knocking down some of the abbeys locally, and that was what they
built. And that
built.
was it, and
Yeah.
that was what they built. But what are the sort of the men perched on top?
So this is the Martin ape. So the Martins were the family who built this, and the ape is their family symbol. And you'll find it all over the house, yes. Well, if you're into medieval fables, you'll know there's the fox, Reynard the fox.
Yes.
And one of the characters in that is Martin's ape, who is actually the kind of the good guy. And here, look, you can see you've got the ape at the top of the tower, and on the other side, that's the unicorn. The poor thing has lost its horn, but because the very first Martins who built this married into the Farringdon family, and the unicorn was their family symbol. So it's the marriage of the ape and the unicorn.
All right, well, this is fascinating, Giles, because I think it's always really interesting, of course, when you come to these houses and to first look outside.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's so much going on in the inside, but looking at the fabric of the building and the carvings that were done.
So beautiful, and the stone is all local stone and so on, yes.
Yeah, it's just wonderful, brilliant, brilliant. Well, I can't wait to see what's inside.
Come along in, out of the cold,
Brilliant.
Come on.
Isn't that fascinating? I mean, it really was the most perfect day to see Athelhampton for my very first time. And once I was inside, Giles was really keen to show me one of his first, and might I say, very big projects.
So Julie, here we are in the Elizabethan kitchen.
Oh my goodness!
And then what you see here, this amazing big brick arch. So this is where the cooking range.
Right.
And we've got a spit there for turning and roasting things on. And
It's incredible. But can I ask, Giles, when you came here in 2019, is that right?
That's right.
And
yeah.
was this one of your first big restoration projects?
Absolutely it was. I mean, I think when I first arrived, this was all covered, the bricks were covered in thick layers of paint. We had 1950s kitchen units right the way across.
No.
An old Arga that didn't really work very well in the middle, and indeed underneath the arch was all bricked in.
Ah, was it? So
yes.
you broke through here.
Broke through all of that, and there was some quite complicated engineering to hold it all up.
Yeah. So you've restored it back to, of course, the Elizabethan kitchen, what it obviously would have been. And it smells amazing, but it also looks like it was. I'm smelling something that's
Well, I was going to say, let me
made.
introduce you to Gemma, our head chef. So Gemma, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi,
Right.
so nice to meet you. So now, what are you making here? It smells absolutely amazing.
So I'm making Tudor pottage.
Right, Tudor pottage.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that recipe. Obviously it's Tudor, but
Yeah.
it was popular.
Yeah, so it's popular. It is made out of vegetables. It's a vegetable stew. It's based on a French recipe, I think, originally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me what vegetables are in this recipe.
Traditionally, the main recipe that we've sort of grown towards, because it's the most popular one, it has turnips, onions, parsnips, swede, carrots, which I don't think would have been orange then, but they are now, obviously. And lots of herbs and spices come from pepper and things like that, really. And it's thickened with pearl barley or oats.
You know, in the Elizabethan time, here we were in this big kitchen. You know, what was happening this was sort of the heart of the house for all day long. It was being used all day long.
I think that's absolutely spot on. I mean, obviously this is, if you like, below stairs.
Yes.
But though you can imagine maybe the lady of the house would come in from time to time, see what's going on, chat with the head chef.
Right.
So I think always a hive of activity, certainly from very early in the morning until late at night, the fire burning away.
Right.
And of course, over there, you've got the what I think of as like a hob, where you'd have little fires that would keep things brewing away over there. Yes.
Yes, you always are having a pot on. Something is happening all the time because you're feeding households, guests,
Yes.
and breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's ongoing. Right. So listen, Gemma, I always ask, can I lend a helping hand?
Absolutely, yeah, always.
Yeah. What would you like me to do?
We are getting to the stage now where we need to put the pearl barley in, because it does take a long time to cook. So
Okay.
we need about a cupful of pearl barley popped into the pan.
All right. Do you want me to just guess my cupful?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Just in a normal cupful. I mean, there's a cupful of onions, carrots, and swede in there right now, so you can sort of have a bit of a guess of
a buttercup.
I mean, they didn't have a
No, they
cup,
didn't have.
and they
Of course
didn't have
they
a,
didn't.
so we can do
Okay.
whatever you fancy.
Are we happy with that?
Yeah, I think that looks good. Perfect.
I do love pearl barley. And
Yeah.
then give it
a good stir.
Give it a good stir.
And then we'll give it 10 minutes, and then we'll add the things that don't need cooking so long, like the leeks, the mushrooms.
So prepping here, would have been busy, hustle, bustle.
Yeah.
Finish the meal, and then what's the next step?
Wow, we would serve it through our lovely serving hatches.
So we can perhaps have a look at these. We've got essentially here an in hatch to put the empty plates in, and then you load them all up along this kind of table here, which they actually called a dresser in Elizabethan times, and then it goes out through the other hatch to be taken, to be served, to be carried through and served in the Great Hall to the family.
Right, so I now understand that is the incoming.
Yep.
Dirty plates.
Exactly, yep.
And that's the outgoing.
Your outgoing, yes.
Plated.
Yes.
But when you were restoring the Elizabethan kitchen, were these two hatches, I mean, they were here originally, but could you see them?
So the inbound hatch, yes, that had been used in Victorian times. The outbound, the one though, was bricked up. And, you know, we could just about see the outline, but it was bricked.
Right, right. But from your research, of course, you knew that there would have been an in and an out.
Exactly, yes. Well, we knew there had to be in and out. That was the way it happened in Tudor times, and a bit like the way in a modern kitchen as well.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. So this was your first big restoration project here at Athelhampton.
Yes,
and
yes.
it's wonderful, and the public can come in. As I said, I've already passed many members of the public wanting to come in here. But do you have other restoration projects? You know, you've been here since 2019, so you know you're relatively new.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, obviously, in a Grade 1 listed house, you don't have that many, but we have got one other big, exciting one going on at the moment, and that is a window in the Great Hall, which has been blocked up for hundreds of years, and we are now opening that up.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I'd love to see that.
I'm sure Gemma needs your hand a little bit longer, but so I'll perhaps head off, leave you with her, and then meet you up in the Great Hall.
Perfect. Okay, I'll meet you at the Great Hall, Giles. And Gemma, do you mind if I just sort of do a little bit more? Okay.
Yeah, so the pearl barley's had its bit of time cooking, so now we're ready to add all the herbs and stuff, which is all chopped and prepped and ready.
Okay.
So we're going
Fantastic.
in. Give it a good stir, and then 10-15 minutes, hopefully we can try it.
And then it's lovely and thick.
That's the pearl barley making that, soaking up all the juice.
That is fantastic.
We'll give it a bit of a test and see if it needs any more.
Oh, it smells so delicious.
I think it's just like a really, really good vegetable stew.
It is,
isn't it?
It is, exactly.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Okay, so leave this.
Yep. I'll look after it for you, and you can.
That'd be amazing.
I'll look after it.
Okay, I'm going to go see Giles in the Great Hall, but it smells incredible, absolutely incredible.
Excited. My belly's rumbling already.
Yeah, exactly, and perfect on a very cold day, that's for sure. At the heart of really all of these medieval Tudor manors was always the Great Hall, and Athelhampton's Great Hall, well, it is tremendous. It has been described as one of the finest examples of 15th century domestic architecture in all of England. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is a perfect Great Hall. I mean, it's intact. It's beautiful. You must tell me more because this is astonishing.
I mean, this hall is very similar to the way it would have been in 1485 when it was built, and you know, that is such a historic date. I mean, that's when the Wars of the Roses come to the end, and Henry VII comes to power. The Tudor dynasty begins.
Yes.
And you know, it lasts for over 100 years to 1603. When with Queen Elizabeth being the last of the Tudors in the second half of that.
of course, what's caught my eye is the minstrel gallery right there.
There definitely was one there when it was first built.
Right.
But it sort of disappeared over the years, and then that one is very much as it would have been, and it is a very old one, but from another house.
Right. So when I walk into the hall, the Great Hall at these historic houses, you can always tell with the roof, the ceiling right here. But explain to me just this bit, because it's absolutely beautiful the way that it's been carved.
So yes, so this is a hammer beam roof, so called because of the shape of these beams. And it is one of the finest, certainly in the county, perhaps in the country, actually. And it's pretty well original. It's really, I think, fabulous.
It is. I mean, I will definitely say it's one of the finest I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of historic houses. But looking beyond, then I can see windows up there.
So what you're looking at there, this is the kind of latest restoration project. Those windows are original. They go right back to the beginning of the hall, but they have been blocked up for hundreds of years. Yes. So we've just actually unblocked. We've taken the wood away. Literally a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my goodness!
And we're now going to put some glass in there, and we're going to put in actually. We're being a bit bold. We're going to put in laser etched glass.
But so when you arrived, 2019, did you know that there was a window there? Was it blocked up? You could tell that there was a window, or was this a later discovery?
We could just about tell there was one there, but it was difficult because there was an organ there. But the organ was removed along with the rest of the furniture.
Parts of these buildings, fabrics of the buildings, when you come to them, is so many of them have stained glass, and it's almost a lost art these days. But when you arrive at a historic house like yours and you see, here they are still intact, and I see very much the stained glass. I have this slight obsession with coat of arms. I probably need to do a whole course on heraldry, I suspect. But I love the way that you can see the impaling. And for me, my learning curve as the American who's come over and married into this family was, of course, hundreds of years ago, these noble families would then marry into other noble families. They had to. So then their coat of arms, the male, would be impaled with the female's family's coat of arms, and I can see that happening there.
Absolutely, you can. I mean, for example, we were talking earlier about the Martins marrying the Farringdons, and the Farringdons had the unicorn as their symbol, and you can see that the unicorn's there in the middle of that yellow bar with the unicorns down the middle of it. And then we talked about the Martin ape. That was the family symbol of the Martins. Yes. And if you look at each of those windows, there is the ape at the top of them.
I mean, it's fascinating. What I do love about stained glasses is that they tell a story.
Always, yes, I agree.
That's what's so brilliant, and there's so many different elements to them. In each element, again, you can...
The pottage is ready.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, look, wonderful.
I was going to get it.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Wow.
Julie, do take a seat, please. Here.
This is, I don't think I've ever, I'm just trying to think. Of course I've had veggie stew before, but,
Elizabethan pottage, maybe not.
I don't think I've had pottage before.
Oh. Would you like me to dish it out?
Oh my goodness, that looks beautiful.
Fab, Gemma, thank you.
You're very
Wonderful,
welcome.
Yeah.
Would you like me to dish it out for you?
Yes,
yes, please.
Yes.
All right, I'll just remove that. Fantastic.
Just give it a little bit, just so you can try it.
Yeah.
Okay, Giles, I'll pass these over to you.
Thank you, lovely.
Lovely.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Help yourself if you want some more.
Okay,
I'll leave
I'm
you to
sure
it.
we will.
Enjoy your lunch.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh my gosh, it looks delicious. Okay. Wow.
Give it a try.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. That's great.
That is brilliant. Perfect on a cold day, would you say?
It is just perfect for it. It really is, yeah.
Oh, it is, and the spices are fantastic. The rosemary is really coming through.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think Gemma has done a brilliant job here. And I love the way all the vegetables, can be grown locally, which is just fabulous.
I mean, absolutely wonderful. I've also noticed that we are eating on pewter dishes. So this really is the full Elizabethan experience, isn't it?
It is, yes. The pot is the the kind of pot they would have had, the spoon, and as you say, pewter. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
If you think about our kind of backgrounds, you know, we're the new kids on the block.
Yeah, no, it's
And-
a good way to think of it.
For me, one of, I think, the most surprising, I think, revelations is it is difficult to maintain and preserve these historic houses. And I think a lot of times people have this false narrative that we're living like they did in the Downton Abbey age, but yet what we're trying to do is we're not only preserving, you know, this part of England's heritage, but we're also wanting to put our own mark on it. Do you find that as well?
I think that's very important. And I mean, by putting your own mark, we don't mean putting up a glass extension, you know, of course not, but it's sympathetic and harmonic with the building. And I think that's very important, but yet using modern technology where that's relevant.
Well, that's exactly where that's relevant. And that's what's so, I think, wonderful when we were just talking about what you're doing with the, you know, the newfound window, which is, of course, which blocked up for hundreds of years, but putting the laser cut glass on it.
Yeah.
And the restoration of the window in the Great Hall isn't the only area at Athelhampton where Giles is using the latest technology to revive this Tudor manor house. Athelhampton is striving to be more sustainable and economical by being the first solar-powered manor house in the country. Heating historic homes is one of the greatest challenges house owners face in the 21st century. And when Giles moved to Athelhampton in 2019, he was faced with the enormous task of heating rooms without insulation or secondary glazing. But he took on this challenge in a new and revolutionary way.
Giles, this is beautiful. And I can see we're coming into the gardens. How many acres, you know, I always have to speak in acres as the American, gardens do you have here?
Sure, so about 20 acres of gardens here.
Incredible.
And you've picked the most brilliant day to come, you really have. Yeah.
I do that. So Luke and I have always said, oh my gosh, Athelhampton, our neighbors, they are the first net zero, and I'll follow it up with castle, because I'm the American, and any big manor house, I always think of a castle, but this is true. You've been able to achieve something that not very many people have been able to, and in particular in a grade 1 listed house.
I think you're right, and we're very pleased to be able to do this. Yeah.
So where are we entering into right now, Giles?
So this is the kitchen garden now, and a lot of the produce for the cafe comes from here.
Fantastic.
And,
well, I had a delicious, I have to say, jacket potato. I haven't had one in quite some time, and I was very pleased. It really warmed me up. So
very good, very good.
Kudos to the chef. But we're now heading somewhere that is a part of this net zero project that began how many years ago?
So it began nearly 3 years ago now, actually, yes. I'm going to show you something that helped produce that jacket potato that you had.
It's fantastic. Well, but here, of course, is an enormous greenhouse.
Yes, indeed.
I shall step inside because I know it'll be lovely and warm in
it's
here.
lovely and warm, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, great for growing the tomatoes for the cafe and so on.
Wonderful.
Come on through here and I will show you that. You have to duck your head.
Yeah,
There we
yeah.
go.
Ooh, I get to go into the no entry zone.
The no entry zone.
The no
yes,
entry zone.
Exactly.
Very lucky,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
lucky. You
yeah.
can come too, everybody.
Yes, exactly. And here we are.
Oh,
The solar panels, yes.
my goodness.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So,
This is extraordinary. This is unbelievable. And how clever that, I mean, you would never guess that these were here. I couldn't see them from anywhere in the garden. Nowhere could I see them.
they're just invisible, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the right question to ask. Do I ask how many solar panels you have, or what are you producing? Tell me.
So these, combined with some that we have in the field around the corner, produce at maximum 130 kilowatts in
Right.
the middle of the day.
Yes.
And across the year as a whole, we're producing nearly 140 megawatt hours of electricity. That is a serious amount of
Right.
electricity, yes.
Is that, and that, okay, how close can you get to these?
We can come up absolutely, you can come and touch them if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in
Oh,
fact,
can I?
well,
okay, great.
we have to do that occasionally anyway, just if they, I mean, normally they're okay, but occasionally they just get a bit dirty, so.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, yeah.
Look at, and they're warm.
Yeah,
Of course
well,
they are.
of course they are, yeah, yeah.
Lovely and warm. This is magical. Okay, Giles, I have so many questions, and I think many people watching this program will have questions as well. First and foremost, you know, you came to Athelhampton in 2019, so not that long ago.
Yes.
It was, presumably it was heated how? And electricity was the normal way, is that right?
So what we had gas tanks,
Yes.
LPG tanks.
Yep.
And that was by far the biggest source of power for and we had lots of gas boilers, which needed a lot of maintenance. And then there was a small oil-fired Aga.
Yes, yes, we still have that.
Yeah, and then we had for emergencies, we had a diesel generator.
Okay.
So a great sort of big beast of a thing.
Okay.
And so all of that has gone.
All of that has gone.
All of it has gone, yeah.
Oh my goodness. And what was your inspiration for this project? And taking this here, and especially in a grade 1 listed house. I mean, did you know coming in, you thought, right, this is something I want to do? You had an idea around that? Or was it once you lived here for a bit, you thought, hold on, this is not sustainable. I'm going to get ahead of the curve.
It did not make sense to be burning all that fossil fuel and just really, you know, having a kind of rather old, inefficient system.
Yes.
And why not put in something brand new that actually uses the new technologies and is zero emissions? And that 140 megawatt hours is enough across the year to cover everything we need at Athelhampton. Everything, which is the heating, the cooking in the commercial kitchen, lighting, even charging the occasional car. So no, it is great.
That is incredible. So, okay, I'm just going to, I know that this is a silly question, but I am going to ask it because I know what the answer is, but I just want to hear it from Giles. So you do not receive any electricity bills or gas bills?
So for the Athelhampton House
Yes.
and the gardens and the cafe, we get a bill in the middle of winter and then we get money back in the summertime.
Okay.
Net, in carbon terms,
Yes.
we actually are genuinely neutral because the what we're drawing down in the middle of winter is a little bit technical, but it comes in the middle of the night,
Right.
when the grid is very low carbon.
Yes, yes.
In terms of actual money, we pay a tiny bit because unfortunately they don't give us as much back for each unit that we put back in as we buy from them.
I see.
Which, you know, I can grumble about, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's tiny.
It's tiny compared to what we are in now, the electricity and the gas prices. It's tiny. And also your heating and lighting electricity, a grade 1 listed house, a very big manor house, and you've got your cafe.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, without this, that bill would be enormous.
It would be horrendous. And
Yes.
then, I mean, as I'm sure you know, then of course what you have to is you turn the thermostats right down or off.
Yes.
And then that's not so good for the fabric of the poor building.
No.
Nor for the fabric of the poor people, but that's another matter. But,
Yes, no, that is, oh my goodness, it's incredible. But this, my understanding is this is just one, I'm seeing just one part of the project that you implemented, is that right?
That's right, yes. So
The solar, this is all drawing it in from this beautiful sun.
exactly, yep.
And then what happens?
So this then is going to go to the heat pumps, which is what creates the heat and the hot water to actually keep the house warm.
Okay, should we head there and
Let's
look
go
at
and
those?
have a look
Okay,
at those.
let's look at those.
Let's head off.
This is so clever, and especially in a grade 1 listed building and garden.
So now we're going to look at the heat pumps. And the heat pumps here are they're being powered by the solar power that we've just
I
seen.
see. So you've got solar power where we were just in the kitchen garden.
Yes, exactly.
Coming all the way underground.
Underground, of course.
Right,
Yes,
underground, up through here.
Yes.
Now explain to me their purpose so I can get my head around
So
this.
these
This is incredible.
machines, and you may be able to feel it, they're a bit like an inverse air conditioner.
Yes.
And so what they're doing is they are yes, this one is going, you can feel it pumping out air.
Oh, yes.
So this draws in air at one temperature and it pumps it out at a lower temperature.
Okay.
And it extracts the heat from the air.
Okay, so these two are working in tandem. Oh,
Yes, well, the system, the kind of computer turns
right.
on and off as many as it needs at any given moment.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, so they're using the solar power to extract, in effect, heat from the air, which is rather clever.
Oh my goodness. This is some serious technology here.
It's good, isn't it?
This is
Yes.
very good.
Yes,
And you
very
have,
yes.
it looks like you've got sort of, what is this, 10?
We've got 10 here,
Here.
yes,
Oh, there's-
and then
so
there's
there's-
another bank over the other side.
And you're very, very clever, Giles, because they're hidden away from view.
Well, that is essential. And I mean, obviously you can see we're very close to even the Elizabethan part, the Tudor
Yes.
part of the house, but they really are tucked away in this kind of, grotty area where we would just had dustbins or something
Right, you would have had,
before.
exactly,
So
exactly.
nobody can see them, but here they are, nice and close to warm up the house.
Nice and,
Yeah.
wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so this now is heating, taking what would be discarded usually, recycling it, if you
Yes,
like.
yes.
Heating, and then there's another step, isn't there? Right.
So yes, so this goes through one more kind of thing that looks a bit like a boiler, and then of course it has to come into the house.
Yes.
And in a kind of old-fashioned, say, a gas boiler, you'd be heating the house through radiators.
Yes.
And we are doing that to some extent, but we're also making a lot of use of underfloor heating, and we've even repurposed some of the old grills that were put in the Victorian era.
So I'd love to see inside then, now sort of the end product, if you like.
Yes.
It coming up through the grills and this heat that I've just seen that's being extracted and pumped in at no cost.
Let's come and look. Let's come and look.
Now, I have to say, I did notice these
Yes.
before when we were in here having our Elizabethan lunch.
Let's have a good look at them,
Oh
shall
my
we?
goodness, yes.
So these are the original Victorian grills.
Fantastic. So these, during the Victorian period, then of course, were to heat the hall that we're in right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Heated by coal.
By coal, right?
Coming
as far
up
as we know,
through.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And then when you came in, was this being used at all as a heat source?
They'd kind of modernized it, I don't know, 30 years ago with a very clunky old system.
Right.
And so barely working, I would say. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that now you're piping it up through and the heat's coming up.
Exactly. So what is coming up from here is actually the heat that's being produced by those air source pumps that we were just looking at.
Yeah, fantastic. So as far as the sort of architectural design of all of this and where the pipe was coming through, the infrastructure was already there. It was, in one sense, it was replacing. Is that right?
That is absolutely true here in the Great Hall.
Okay.
But as you went through the rest of the house, in some places, maybe there were old radiators, which we could use one or two of, but mainly had to upgrade. But also, we decided on another solution in some places, which was to remanufacture these grills and put them in other rooms.
Ah, okay. Instead of having the wall radiators.
Exactly.
Much prettier.
Much prettier.
Yeah, yeah.
Giles's innovative thinking and vision is shared by co-mastermind Stephen Pittman, who met me in the powerhouse of the whole project.
So I walked through, a lot of this project that you and Giles did together. I've seen the solar panels. I've seen I call them air conditioners, but they're not.
Yeah.
But
Heat pumps, yeah.
Heat pumps. But now we're here, and so just remind everybody who's watching again. It's almost as if tell me if I'm wrong, but it's almost as if you're almost like your own electric company?
Well,
grid?
yes, so we're generating electricity from the solar panels. Okay. Now, obviously, that's only at a certain peak of time,
Yes.
and that changes throughout the year,
Yes.
and your demand changes throughout the year as well. So, in the summer, for example, it's generating more energy than it usually would use.
Right.
And rather than that just be sent back to the grid, it's storing it in these.
I see.
And then when that generation declines, as that decline becomes to a level that the estate needs more, the batteries start trickling in.
Oh my goodness.
And that's how it balances it out.
And that, I see.
The first 12 months of this system up and running, it drew 9.5 megawatts of electricity from the grid, but sent back 7 megawatts.
Right.
So that's a difference of 2.5 megawatts,
Right.
which is smaller than most 3-bed semis.
Right, right.
And beforehand, that was just massive, way beyond any of those numbers. So ultimately, these batteries are offering that balance.
Yeah, they're offering the best.
It's a 12-bed, significant Tudor manor house, largely single glazed, etc. I understand Giles has gone through all the upgrades we did inside the house. We've got the coach house, which is grade 2-star thatch building. Other than the thatch, there's no insulation there.
Right, right.
There's River Cottage, which is similar. There's outbuildings and sort of all the grounds and estate needs there. And within all of that, the energy usage from the grid is less than a 3-bed semi-detached house.
Unbelievable.
So
Unbelievable. That is incredible.
yeah,
Right there.
It's quite impressive.
It is really impressive.
Yeah.
And all those, sort of aspects you just said, single glazed, there's not double glazed on
Yep.
it. You're talking about
no insulation on
no
the roof.
insulation, a 500-year-old house, and same goes for the coach house, the thatched roof restaurants now. The cost to heat those buildings right now without this would be astronomical.
Oh, absolutely, you'd be looking at 6 figures easy.
Yep, 6 figures, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Stefan, this is fantastic. So
Not at all.
thank you for taking the time.
Nice to
What
meet
a
you.
brilliant project, so nice to meet you.
How amazing to think that until 2020, 100 tons of carbon were emitted annually at Athelhampton. And the aim of this project is to cut carbon emissions to 0. Giles has, of course, made a massive investment, but what is so inspiring and also rewarding is the long-term benefit to the environment.
Now, what's fascinating for me as an American, to be perfectly honest, is that always, it seems like, when you go to these historic houses,
Yes.
there's the history, the fabric, the architecture, the
Yeah,
inside, the
yeah,
stories.
yeah.
But then, of course, you get to walk outside.
You do,
And there's
yes.
usually a fantastic garden.
Of
Is that
course.
right?
Yeah, no, they go together. They really do. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the English love their gardens,
Yes,
don't they?
Yes, absolutely they do.
And here, of course, I've heard so much about the gardens here at Athelhampton. So you're going to give me a tour, is that right?
I will do, yes, I will show you. Come on through here.
Wow.
And this we call it the corona. It sounds a bit bad given what we've all been through, but it's
probably
because
very
it's
popular now.
It's a crown, and you can see these little pyramids round,
Yes.
or obelisks forming this crown. And this is really, this small circle is the heart of the Athelhampton garden.
Fantastic. And the garden, has it evolved over the years? And obviously it has, but can you give me a little bit of history around it?
Of course, but
Right.
the designer was a man called Inigo Thomas, and he was an amazing man, real thinker and designer, architect and so on. And he drew inspiration from the Renaissance, from the Elizabethan era. He drew it all together, and he had this idea of rooms, of outdoor rooms. And so this is the room, as it were, at the heart of the outdoors. And
Right.
we can go into each of the little doorways around the edge.
Okay.
And,
Well,
and in fact, we've just come through one, which is,
Right.
where, of course, in front of the house, where you would arrive, and that links us to the house. And now, if you
So
like,
which-
we can
which
come
room
through.
are we
Well,
going to?
Let's come
It's-
here to what we sometimes call the private or the east garden here.
oh, it is stunning. Look at this. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Oh, and then you just have this fantastic view from the back of the house.
Exactly. yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. And overall, how long? Because when Mapperton, I know our Italianate gardens took
Yes.
7 years, 1920 to 1927.
Right,
And these gardens
okay,
here,
yes.
what was the length?
So I think the initial stage, these outdoor rooms that we're going through now, were built very quickly, actually, in
Oh,
about
right.
perhaps 2 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was a massive effort. They had to shift 40,000 kind of tons of earth, which sounds extraordinary amount.
Yes, it does.
And
yes,
indeed, they had to demolish some old farm buildings because the house had actually kind of become a farmhouse, and it was being converted back to become a mansion.
Right.
So there was lots of work, but they just really, shall we come this way around?
This is enormous.
Now, yes, isn't this amazing?
This is
Yeah.
amazing.
The Great Court.
Oh, so this room is called the Great
Great
Court.
Court, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay,
Now these
yeah,
these are you.
yeah, tell me about these
And
pyramid
well, you
views.
see, I think Inigo Thomas put these here because if you look at pictures of old Elizabethan gardens, they often had
Yes.
yew pyramids. But now, mostly, they were kind of sort of knee-high to a grasshopper. They were sort of down here somewhere or other. And of course, over the years, these ones have just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Look at this.
Yes.
And is this is their peak, or is there potential that
To
they
be
could?
honest, I think they're now big enough.
Okay.
And if anything, we'd love to just perhaps make them not quite so big. But that's a tall order. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I think
that
they're
is.
a lovely size now.
They
They're
are.
lovely. Yeah,
This
yeah.
is beautiful.
And then we made our way to Giles's favorite room, the Mediterranean garden where tea was waiting for us.
And it's my favourite because it's a bit of a sun trap at almost every time of year.
Right.
And in summertime, we might come and have a cocktail here before supper.
Sounds good.
But obviously now it's winter and we perhaps want something a bit warmer and it's the middle of the day. So we've got a cup of tea for you here. So yeah,
Sensational.
yeah. Eucalyptus.
Oh my goodness, this is fantastic.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely fantastic. I can see why this is your favorite part. This is,
Yes,
I'm
yes,
afraid, I'm
yes.
gonna have to agree with you.
Yes.
I mean, I love the Great Court.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but there's just something spectacular about this tree,
Yes,
eucalyptus,
yes.
and then brought us some tea.
Cup of tea, yeah.
Well,
Yes.
brilliant. Do
Yeah.
you know what? We do have the sun, and it is, when you look at it, it is
Please.
rather warm.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
oh, cheers.
Welcome. Cheers.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Giles. What an absolutely spectacular garden. So, Giles, you know, I just wanted to ask, now that we're sort of sitting out here having a cup of tea, relaxed, the sun is on us. You became the custodian of Athelhampton in 2019. And what was it that really drew you? Because this is a big project.
Oh,
You know, this
sure.
is not like I'm just going to buy a large modern house and have all the modernizations, and it's much easier to restore, repair, whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what inspired you to say, right, I want to be a custodian of, you know, a home that's well over 500 years in history?
Yeah, and I mean, you know better than almost anyone what a big project and how much is involved. So of course, but I think the answer is, I mean, it's just almost like falling in love. I mean, it is an amazing place,
Yes.
and if one's lucky enough to have that opportunity, very difficult to not be tempted by that. It is
Right.
just extraordinary here, and I think it's because it's not just that you've got a wonderful old house, it's that you've got all the amazing history, all the people who've been connected with it down history and right up to the present day. I mean,
That's
the
right.
wonderful people who work here and who know it,
Yes.
all the visitors who come, people who've been married here, all that, and then of course the gardens, just stunning.
Yes.
So, yeah.
No, and you've put it so eloquently, because that's exactly how I feel. It's about the stories past, but also the stories present, and the community that these houses still retain, but in a different way.
Yes,
So,
yes.
you know, when we look back 100, 150, 200 years ago, and of course in Athelhampton's case, well over 500 years ago, the community was very much tied in.
Yes,
But
that's true.
we as custodians now, our community is a much wider reach because it's the public. We're saying, come and enjoy
Yes.
what we want to share with you.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's sort of making sure that those invisible walls that were once up hundreds of years ago are completely down, and it's that shared history and story. And I think that's what's so wonderful.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think, as well as physically inviting people in or allowing them to see over video and whatever, it is also about showing people the history.
Yes.
And understanding how people lived in the past and so on.
Yeah.
That's all part of it.
Of course it is, and how we've evolved.
Very much so.
I'm thinking at one point when it gets warmer, Giles, I might have to invite myself back, and I'm going to tell you, I'm usually a beer drinker. However, because I am a lover of Italy, Mediterranean, I would have an Aperol Spritz with you. Would you do that with me
That
next time I
sounds
come
like
back?
a deal. It sounds like a deal. Yeah.
All right, Aperol Spritz it is, everybody, the next time we return. I am absolutely thrilled to be here in Gloucestershire on the edge of the Cotswolds at Berkeley Castle. This castle has been lived in by the same family for nearly 900 years. I mean, just looking at it right now, I can see the arrow slits, I can see the keep. I mean, this is a proper castle. It's a fortress. It's incredible. But I also know that a king was imprisoned here and murdered as well. So I'm gonna go meet the family right now. Ooh, and they're gonna tell me everything. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Hello and welcome to the drawing room here at Mapperton. Thank you once again for joining me for another fascinating historic house visit. This time I'm at Berkeley Castle in Gloucestershire, and Berkeley Castle has been described as an enchanted castle and is everything you imagine a medieval castle to be. It is spectacular. Wow. And incredible. It's like walking back in time. It's a real fortress. I mean, this has this feeling of sort of defending itself from invaders and clearly imprisoning a king. As well as being at the center of so much history, it's been home to the Berkeley family for nearly 900 years. Charles Berkeley is now at the helm and continuing the legacy of generations of Berkeleys before him. Hello.
Hi, Judy.
Oh my goodness, so nice to see you. And
Good to see
Gosh,
you.
to be here. You know, the pictures don't do it justice.
It's magical as you come in and approach through this door into the Great Hall.
Oh my goodness. The banqueting hall.
It is.
For me, it's astounding, first of all, just to know that your family has been here for nearly 900 years.
I believe it's the oldest inhabited castle in Great Britain, lived in by the same family that built it originally. We're still here in some form, and it's wonderful. It's got a lot of history all around it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely incredible. And as you said, it's, you know, that is rare. You go to these homes and, you know, some of them have been there for 300, 400, 500 years, yes, but 900 years, and you are obviously the only family who can make that claim.
And I think I'm the 27th generation being here, from 1150, basically.
1150. So, it's nearly, we can say 1,000 years of history.
Yes.
Nearly. We're coming up to that. So this is the banqueting hall. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular. And what has stayed the same and what has sort of changed or evolved?
Well, these were the original Norman arches. So those were the original arches here when the castle, this room was being constructed.
Right.
And the roof has adapted.
Yes.
This was rebuilt in the 15th century. These amazing ship's timbers, this vaulted roof. You imagine the work that goes into constructing that.
Yes. Remind us, the banqueting hall was again, like a great hall. Everything sort of happened here, is that right?
Everything happened here, from entertaining royalty. Families would have had dinners here. They would have had banquets to celebrate various events. They would have had galleries like this, and
yes,
musicians would have played and performed. And it's been used right up to the present day. There are weddings and parties here still.
I mean, that's what's so fantastic, and as it should do, and as it should be used. Now, you mentioned here, this is the minstrel gallery here, is that right?
This is the minstrels gallery.
And is that the original minstrels gallery?
This is one that came from a house in Wales called Ceffin Mabley, and there would have been a gallery here, but it was stripped away. This one was brought in, and they added Berkeley coats of arms on it, repainted it. And there's a famous story of the last royal jester in the country told his last joke from up there. He was pushed apparently from that balcony and died in 1720s, but he was the last royal jester in the country.
Oh
died,
my goodness.
Supposedly from this balcony.
Oh dear.
For telling bad jokes.
He was pushed, pushed to his death.
Pushed, and he was the Earl of Suffolk's own jester.
Right.
And died in this room, but he was a celebrated character of his time.
And it's quite common, I mean, I know this just at Mapperton as well, some of our fireplaces, the mantels were brought from other stately homes, historic homes. You would find them and then you would bring them into your own home as well to sort of keep with the look and feel and be sympathetic to what you're doing. Is that what's happened here? There was once a minstrel's gallery, it had been removed, and then it was brought back in.
Absolutely, brought back in, redecorated, in sympathy with how the building would have been. And actually, talking about fireplace, this one was brought from another property, an old Elizabethan property on the estate, and by the 8th Earl and established here.
So tell me a little bit about the 8th Earl then, because you've mentioned him here, and he was somebody who decided to, right, I'm going to be sympathetic, I'm going to bring it back to its original sort of look and feel.
He did. He decided that during the Victorian times, a lot of the rooms had changed in their style. They'd been wood panelled, and he stripped that away. He wanted to replace some of the earlier windows with very symbolic stained glass windows showing lots of the family and royal links to the castle. So he had these shields put on in the 1930s, I believe.
Right.
He put in new doors, he put electrics in the castle, he brought in a lot of stonework and doors from other places, travelled through France and Italy, and salvaged a lot of things to turn the castle back into what he felt it would have been originally.
Yes.
A Norman castle, which is what it was.
Exactly.
But it had been changed slightly over the years.
Where is your coat of arms, just so I get it right?
Julie, here, that shield there, the chevron, the upside down V with those crosses, that is our the shield, the Berkeley shield.
Okay.
And that goes back to 1300. So, for example, the Berkeley there, William, the 12th Baron of Berkeley, he actually left the castle to Henry VII and his heirs. He wanted to become a marquis, and he had the castle taken away from him for his actions, that the king didn't approve of some of the things he'd done, and it became a royal castle for 150 years. But that is the family main shield.
Right.
And you can see it again
I can
up
see
there
up
with
there.
the bishop's mitre atop.
Yes.
And then some royal coats of arms of some of the royals who came, and other family coats of arms here.
Goodness. Well, I'm just having a look.
So
Sir
Henry
Charles.
VIII
Yes.
there,
Oh.
and his dates, Henry VII.
Yes, up above we've got King Edward VI.
That's it.
So how many monarchs would you say have sort of visited or stayed or lived?
We reckon about 10 have actually been and maybe come for a very short time, including Henry VIII, who came for a week.
Right, he came for a week. That's quite a long time.
It is a long time. And Edward and Richard II, who wrote about, it was written about, he came and visited in Shakespeare, and he mentions Berkeley. So, yes, there were some who came briefly, and there were some who sadly didn't survive. Edward II was actually, yes.
Right.
I'll tell, there's more of a story about him. So, yes, we reckon about 10 visited.
10? I mean, absolutely. And who's the last one to visit?
And King Charles has visited here. And
Brilliant.
Prince Harry came and did some work experience here for a couple of weeks on the
Right.
estate.
Fantastic.
So recent visitors.
You've had recent royalty.
Recent royalty.
That is brilliant. This banqueting hall, we know how it was used, of course, way back when. But do you still use this hall as a family?
We do. We have weddings, parties in here, and we've used it over the last 5 years for many family parties, and it comes alive. It's a fantastic room. It's got the history around it. Why not, as a family, use these rooms when you can?
Yeah, well, and they should be used. And
yes.
That's what's so wonderful, and I think that's what also is fantastic is that these historic houses in Berkeley Castle, you know, in particular, what you've just shared with me is that they're lived in by the families. These aren't just, you know, museums filled with history. It's the family making use of the rooms and creating their own history.
It really is, and I think that's so important, and you get a sense of pride when the rooms are being used for a lovely occasion and they're decorated, and you know, the sound of people enjoying themselves.
Yes,
I think
exactly,
it's great.
exactly. Wow, so this is one spectacular room, and there are a lot of rooms here, aren't there?
There are. Let's go and have a look at another room.
Okay, great. Where are we heading into now?
Well, Julie, we're going into the long drawing room, the sort of Regency period, lovely rooms.
Lovely, and I can see the public gets to, I recognize ropes like this. We have them at Mapperton as well.
They
so this
do.
is one of the rooms that the public gets to
Absolutely, they
see.
get to view this room, and it's wonderful. There's a lot of history here.
Well, yeah, everywhere. I mean, this is a royal castle, so
Yes,
there's lots
yes.
of history.
Yes.
Of course. Now, that has caught my eye because it almost looks like it's out of place for a long drawing room. I mean, not that I know that much about long drawing rooms, but
It's very, you wouldn't normally expect that, would you? Walk in here, but it's 15th century, so it goes back to Henry VII's time with his coat of arms.
Oh.
And in the middle there.
Yes.
And
But what is it?
it is a pew that would have been used in church, in a chapel. A lot of these houses had the family pew. When they had visiting dignitaries, they would have sat up there. And this was in one of the chapels in the castle, a room not far from here. And the 8th Earl took it down in the 1920s because he was agnostic, didn't want to have a chapel in the house, and had it rebuilt in here, as you do.
As you do in a long drawing room. But he somehow made it work.
He did, and yes, as you wouldn't think it would work in a period room like this, but he had a very good eye, and it does sort of work, and you get used to the lovely woodwork and
Yes.
how it is, and it's and in fact it's got the nice coat of arms on.
Yes, well, but that is
Yeah.
absolutely spectacular. And what else do we have dotted around?
We've got lovely paintings. This painting here is of the 5th Earl of Berkeley, quite a character in his time, painted by an artist called Bertoni. That's him in I think in ancient Rome on his European travels. And this is his wife, Mary Cole, a local lady who eventually he married, and they had 12 children,
Oh my
I
goodness.
believe, together. And there was a famous story, because after he had died in 1812, she had to go to the House of Lords and fight this court case for her children.
For all
Because,
12?
well, the elder son, who was meant to inherit the title, it was turned down against him because he'd signed, they didn't actually get married. The church registry, he'd falsified the documents to say they got married in 1786. He was in league with the local vicar, and
Right.
actually their real marriage took place 10 years later. So the older 5 children were born outside of the marriage, and she fought for this case, went to the House of Lords for the privileges case. We've got documents about it, and lost the case.
No.
So it caused some ill feeling. The 6th
Yes.
son, in the end, got the castle, but loved his brother and didn't take the title on. And the brother was actually, he let him, he got another title, the older one, who should have had the title. But it did cause some animosity. She never knew this. She thought they got married in Berkeley Church, and it was all done legally.
Right, yes.
But actually, it wasn't a proper ceremony.
Wasn't.
He rushed it through, knowing it wasn't, and they only got married, as I said, years later. But she fought 3 occasions. She went to the House of Lords to fight this.
Well, what a beautiful room, and just filled with incredible stories from, different periods. And that's what
Absolutely, yeah.
makes these
300
castles
years of history with the pew and the paintings up to the modern day.
up to the modern day. Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, should we walk through into here?
Yes. Look at those carvings up there. Oh my. Okay, the thing that I'm just going to tell you right now, Charles, not knowing anything about this room, I
Yes.
know nothing about this room, are the beams. But should I be in awe of the beams?
You should.
Okay.
Well noticed, Julie. Because these are all solid ships, again, oak timbers, and they say that they used to get the cannons on top of the roof. You had to have these strong, there's quite a naval connection with the family, but these are all from ships. You can see some different sizes.
Yes.
You see it very much in this room, though, the size of the beams.
You do, that's incredible. I mean,
And the
it's
room's slightly lower as well.
Yes, it's the first thing that caught my eye. I mean, it's a beautiful room. There's incredible tapestries surrounding me, but
Yes.
funny enough, that's the first thing that caught my eye.
Solid, good,
Yeah.
big oak beams. This was all wood panelling around here. It was stripped away by the 8th Earl, so to reveal some of the stonework, which
Yes.
has been redone.
And then the tapestries to keep it warm.
Yeah.
So the tapestries are actually being used in a way
Absolutely, I think
they
really
were-
well.
yeah,
there's
really,
a
really
series
well.
of lovely tapestries that warm,
Lovely.
make the room cosy.
that tapestries.
Fireplace
It's
that came from somewhere elsewhere
Right.
again,
I know
with
that
these lovely
story.
carvings
yeah, beautiful
and this
carvings
lovely
everywhere.
iron grate at the back.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Beautiful
And there's
carvings.
a king right there. So is that
That
Charles
is-
the first or the second?
I think that's the second.
The second, yes.
And that's the Duke of Northumberland.
Okay.
Again, rather lovely, 2 lovely paintings. No
Yes.
connection to the family, but it was acquired
That's
by
all right.
the
It's a
family.
connection to our family. So that's
Charles
why.
II,
That's why
yes.
I always spot Charles II in any room or anywhere
Right.
I go.
You'd have to look for
It's
yeah.
our claim to fame. It's our really only royal link. I mean, proper royal link is, of course, bringing Charles II back for the restoration.
Fantastic. That's,
You know,
that's a great story.
I'm going to wave that flag for a long time.
That's
the reason we have the monarchy today is because of the Montagues.
He's one of my favourite kings too. Just
Well, that is brilliant. Oh, I love it that you have family photos in the rooms that the public obviously go through and see the history, but then they're seeing the living history here.
absolutely, this is the current family. This is our family. my father, my mother, my brother and his wife, my wife. And, you know, the family are seen here at the castle. We have family events. The family are often seen rushing around through these courtyards into the rooms. They come to see Granny here at the castle. My daughter and friends, they disappear up into some of the rooms. And
Incredible. But you grew up here then? Yes.
We grew up
in the castle.
We spent the winter months here
Right.
at Berkeley because there was a lot more going on in the winter here. And my brother and I, 11 months between us, there were two of us, two boys in the castle. We had our rooms up in the oldest part of the castle, and we would run around these rooms, hiding in the pew, hiding up on the king's balcony. The guided tours were on, we'd suddenly jump out. We'd be up on the roof. As soldiers, my brother, we both had a love of all things military, and yeah, we'd explore every little part. My father would often come and look for us. My mother had a bell she would ring to get us in for lunch. She'd ring it in the courtyard, and all the guides and visitors would be looking, and there'd be two boys up on the roof. So we loved being here, and we had rooms, as I said, in the keep, away from my parents, but it was exciting. It was a privilege, as my father said.
Yes.
The privilege of being in these rooms, of these houses. And yeah, I loved, and I grew to love history from a young age and visiting other places, but being able to explore these rooms was magical. We were very lucky. And it grows on you. This is your surroundings, and it was magical. My brother would say the same.
Berkeley Castle played a major role in a gruesome and chilling event of British medieval history. Charles led me to the keep, the oldest surviving part of the castle, to tell me more.
Everywhere you go, Charles, I've already decided I do feel I'm in just a proper castle. It's really maintained and retained all of its features.
It certainly has, and you've got these incredible trip steps, the original steps coming up into the oldest part of the castle, the keep.
Well, what are trip steps?
They're made so they're slightly uneven, on different angles even, very solid stones, and the enemy coming up here would trip them up.
Well, I was wondering why I was having a difficult time actually.
I noticed just now.
I was like, well, that's very clever.
It is. It's a great invention and a piece of feat of building, and it's coming up to this solid, wonderful old keep, the original tower of the castle where the family and others would have lived. It was a safe place,
right?
And the enemy would often come up here, and you'd have your arrow men and guards up on top. Or you pour your boiling oil down. There's a little area just behind the door there, and get the enemy as they were rushing up these steps.
As they were rushing up, but they could be tripping.
Or they could be tripping as well, because of the uneven steps.
Yes, brilliant. That's amazing.
Okay, we're going to go into the cell now, the prison cell, where a king was kept.
Oh my goodness, so this is it.
This is the original cell. Which back in 1327, Edward II was imprisoned and killed.
And killed. Oh my goodness. This is where a king was locked up, basically.
It was, Julia. King Edward II was imprisoned in here, locked up. 6 months he was kept as a prisoner, looked after well, but nonetheless he was King of England, and there were guards outside.
Right.
And the Berkeleys apparently left the castle, went somewhere else, had no part to play in it.
What had he done?
He hadn't really done anything. He was considered at the time quite a weak king. He'd lost battles against the Scots. He had his favourites. The barons became very powerful. Supposedly his wife, who was the daughter of the King of France, was having an affair with one of the barons, Roger Mortimer. Edward was, and they they plotted, there were various things. He had his male favourites, supposedly, and all these plots came together, and
Right.
he was imprisoned in 2 other castles before eventually coming here and eventually being killed. Or
Here?
Dying in this very room.
No.
Which is amazing to
No.
know that a
Okay.
king was killed.
When you say that he died here, but did he die because he wasn't fed, or did somebody come and murder him?
Supposedly 2 jailers were ordered by the barons at the time to come, and he'd already escaped twice. There'd been 2 escape attempts.
Right.
They needed money for new locks. We have accounts of that to keep him as a prisoner. And they realised, actually, we've got to do something about him. If he escapes again, we may not keep him here. It was a punishment to him, and he was supposedly killed. There's a story, a rather nasty story of red hot irons being inserted into his bowels.
No.
And being killed, or was he suffocated in his sleep?
Right.
Rather nasty story, grim story, but he certainly died in September 1327 here.
Here. Was Edward II the only person, I mean, I know he was the only king to be imprisoned here, but was he the only person to be imprisoned here? No. Was this used as sort of...
I believe there would have been other prisoners who would have been put in here before Edward II, and again after, probably another 100 years after. This would have been used as a cell.
As a
and
cell.
People would have been kept in here before. Some of them would have been thrown into there is a dungeon here in the castle, a pit, with rotting animal carcasses on top. In fact, Edward, they tried to kill him in that way. The rotting animal carcasses in the dungeon, they thought the fumes from that would eventually kill him. But he survived. He was made of strong stuff, and the fumes, you can imagine, would come through into this room from the dungeon. But he survived all that, and they had to find another way.
And they
thought eventually he'll just die from the horrible fumes. But many prisoners would have been thrown in the dungeons, and that would have been it.
That would have been
But this was a cell.
Yes.
Back in the time.
Yes,
a
but
holding cell.
You did say that your ancestors had nothing to do with his imprisonment. But what happened to them when Edward II was here imprisoned? Where did your ancestors go?
Well, we think Thomas wanted no part to play in it. I don't think he had any say in the fact that Berkeley was that Edward II was going to come here. He would have known, though. But he went to one of the other manor houses in Bristol, and he was pardoned. He was at first questioned and then pardoned that he had no part to play in it. They left it to a group. There were 3 or 4 jailers and people living here guarding the king at the time, and they went to their other house, then came back later.
And then came back.
But he wasn't executed, or
luckily
he
was
kept
pardoned.
his head.
Yeah,
They were
luckily.
good at keeping their heads, the Berkeleys.
Yes, for 900 years.
900 years. Keeping on the right side of the king or queen, which was important.
Exactly, at the time.
I don't know if it's a good thing that we connected to
a
that,
good
but
story.
it's a story, and it's history, isn't it?
It is history, and it's just you're standing in this room right now knowing that, Edward II was definitely pacing back and forth, trying to figure out how he was going to escape. And, that's
I
pretty
can't
extraordinary.
imagine being in a cell, in a car, and knowing he'd been kept prisoner.
Right.
You can't imagine how it would have been. The castle is still here, and there's a family here. That's what makes it. It's quite special in that way. We've got rooms like this, which
which tell a story.
Tell a story.
Yeah.
Berkeley Castle is breathtaking. As soon as you arrive, you get a very real sense of it having been a fortress. But it's also a family home, and it's been lived in by the same family for nearly 900 years. And you know me, I'm fascinated by historical documents and what's still to be discovered in the archives. So Charles kindly invited me to visit the muniment room in the private area of the castle.
Here we are in the muniment room, Julie.
So this is it. This is where all of Berkeley archives are held.
Absolutely going right back to 1100, basically. Up to a lot of medieval ones, especially.
I mean, that
And
is,
they're all-
that must be unheard of. Is that right? Having this
I
large of a collection
don't
that dates back.
think there are
almost-
many family collections that go right back
No.
continuously that far.
No, ours certainly
Yours-
don't.
And if I can introduce you to Karen, our archivist.
Hi.
Hi.
So
Lovely to
nice
meet
to
you.
meet you. This is a treat. First of all, love Munimate rooms. I'm redecorating one at Mapperton, and it's just become this real passion project of mine, and finding these letters. But as Charles just told me, you know, our letters kind of go back a few hundred years. Yours is nearly 1,000.
Yes. And I've got the earliest ones out to show you.
Oh my goodness.
Today.
I can't believe it. So you have documents clearly that have survived almost 1,000 years.
That's it.
That's
Yes.
Almost,
incredible.
Yeah.
And how many would you say around that are almost near, you know, medieval?
Ooh.
There's
would you reckon, Karen?
I think there's about 3,000, 3,500 up to 1491, which we have a published catalogue of. And the reason we stopped there was that was the date where the estate passed to the Crown for
Right.
several decades.
Yes.
So these, the top three are the documents by which the estate originally came into the family in the 1150s. So they're not dated, but we can work out roughly when they're dated by the names of the witnesses at the bottom. So who was around at this particular time. So this one is the very first one, and we think it's about 1150. And you've got H is Henry, Duke of Normandy, Count of Anjou, and that is Henry II, but he's not Henry II yet.
Okay.
And he is granting to Robert Fitzharding from Bristol various things, including some land in the manor of Berkeley. You can just see Berkeley there.
Okay, yeah, I can.
And one of the things that, one of the conditions that is laid down is that he is to build a castle, and you can just see Castellum there.
Yes.
So this document dates back to before this building. They're older than the building itself.
That's amazing. in
Isn't it
itself,
amazing?
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing, but it's
Yes.
also amazing because obviously this is in Latin. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But you can clearly see Berkeley right there,
Yeah.
clearly, and then of course
Yes.
Castelli right there. So it's incredible that Berkeley, even the name, because you know how language has just evolved,
Yes.
has pretty much stayed the same and almost the exact spelling.
Almost the exact. Yeah. So it's Berkeley with
Yeah.
an AI on,
Yeah.
on the end. But so that's
So
that
this
one.
is very important because in
Yes.
one sense this is a document saying that the soon-to-be Henry II is in one sense giving this land to the family.
Yes.
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 Okay.
And then this one is a marriage contract between Robert Fitzharding's son Maurice and the daughter of the guy who had Berkeley before, and his name is Roger de Berkeley, and his daughter's name is Alice.
Right.
It's not mentioned in the document. It just says the daughter of.
Yeah.
But also the other way as well. Roger's son Roger is marrying Robert Fitzharding's daughter Helen.
All right.
So it's a two-way
yeah.
family
Yes.
marriage contract, presumably to make sure it's stuck.
So again, that's
So
very
that's-
important because
yes,
that's
so
sort of
that's-
this agreement of marriage. If
Yes,
you like.
absolutely. And there will have been two copies of it on the
I can
same
see
piece of
Berkeley in there.
parchment.
I already see Roger
yeah,
de Berkeley
well done,
there.
Roger de Berkeley. Yeah, there he is. And across the bottom here, you might be able to see there's the top half of some writing. And it will originally have been one big sheet of parchment, and written across the middle in big letters will say Chirographum, which they would put across the middle and then cut, and then you both get a copy. And then if it fits back together, if you've got any query about the transaction,
Right.
if it fits back together and the writing fits, then
You know it's
then
the
you know it's
original.
genuine.
Right.
And this carries on right up until the sort of 18th century.
It's just fantastic.
They're so clear. They're much clearer than later documents to read.
And I've also noticed, of course, I'm not going to touch, but you've got these sort of well, the seal there, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's still been retained.
Yes, so that one hasn't survived. But this one just about has. It's been repaired with plain beeswax at some point. And it's the Great Seal. So the Great Royal Seal has the monarch on horseback on one side.
Yes.
And enthroned on the other side. And you can't really see him sitting on a throne there.
Well, use
but
my
you
imagination.
Can,
you can make
yeah,
out
but
the
you
horse
can, you can
there.
definitely see the horse.
Absolutely.
Yes, which is quite something. And
Yeah.
then again, the seal hasn't really survived on that one, and the one on this one is very tired and in its little, cloth sack,
being
and that's
protected,
tied on the top, as you can see.
Absolutely.
Rather than on the bottom.
This is the main one, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's fascinating. But again, this is also just these letters here. It's a royal connection that this castle has had for 900 years.
Yes.
You know, there's the
Yes.
soon-to-be King
Yeah.
Henry II
Yes.
right there.
Yes.
I mean, unbelievable. And when you and I were speaking, you said that around 10 monarchs you believed visited.
I reckon at least visited, or we've got records of them coming to Berkeley over time.
Connections with, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we know Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn visited in 1535. Lady Berkeley of the time had been a lady-in-waiting to Anne Boleyn and is said to have been one of the witnesses at Anne's secret marriage to Henry. Yeah.
So do you, can you find, or you're going to be looking through documents of that? You're not sure if you...
So we haven't really got anything specific, but there is a mention in an account book that Anne Lady Berkeley has commissioned a, I think it's a gable hood, one of those headdress things, for the Queen.
That's
at
quite
about
something,
that
isn't it,
date.
to find
Yes,
that?
yes, one of my
That date,
volunteers
right.
found that.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we don't have any sort of personal letters, but
but we can make these
yes,
assumptions.
we are pretty sure.
Yeah. And then moving forward, then you've got...
Well, we do have Elizabeth I, and the other documents on the table. These are 3 letters from Elizabeth to her cousin, or rather her cousin's son, George. So George Carey, Lord Hunsdon, is the grandson of Mary Boleyn. Mary Carey.
Yes.
The other Boleyn girl.
The other
Boleyn girl. Yep.
Yep. Saw that
so
film.
Anne Boleyn's. Yep. So Anne Boleyn's sister's grandson. This is George Carey, and Elizabeth I is writing to him, and we know that she thought a lot of him because this yellow silk that you can see here, originally the letter would have been tied up and sealed with it, look.
Beautiful.
I can't believe that's still
it's
there
still
on
so
it.
bright yellow, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And apparently she only used yellow silk on really important letters and letters to people she was proper fond of.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and in these 2, she's she's writing to him. He's been to Bath, I think, to take the waters, and he's not been very well. So she's hoping that he's better and hoping that his language has improved. Apparently, he was a bit of a swearer.
Oh, right.
And sort of generally, sort of gently teasing him. She sounds very much like an affectionate aunt.
Right.
And so we think they were probably written on her behalf by a secretary, but signed by her. Yeah.
Well, I was about
And
to say,
see
because you can see the differences in this
yeah,
writing.
so this one is very much a different hand
and this
to
writing,
this one.
but the signatures.
Yes.
There she is,
Yes.
Elizabeth R.
Yeah.
Elizabeth R. Your most affectionate
sovereign. Yes.
And Elizabeth always did that with her signature.
Yes.
Sort of
big flourishes.
Yes.
Yes.
Great big
sort of
squiggle on
taking up a
the
bit of
E.
space.
Yeah.
These were probably written in the 1580s, 1590s, I believe.
Well, I'll tell you what is extraordinary. I mean, if you think about, this is what, 500 years old. Well, I'll just exactly. You can read. I can read that entire letter.
Yes. So this is in an italic hand, which now we think of italics as being the slanty font, but this this is the sort of the forerunner of our modern handwriting, where this one is in something called secretary hand.
Okay.
Which is
very difficult.
Rather different. A lot of the letter forms are very different. It takes a bit of learning. It takes you a bit of time to get.
But
your
you're
eye
right
in.
about. I can read Good George, because I've heard that before you're departing for Bath, next maybe not. your speech was
Become
become
much better.
Nor your legs.
Oh yes, that's
any
it. It's
stronger.
neither. Yes, so
And
neither your
you-
speech was become much better, nor your
Ah.
legs any stronger. So she's taken the mick out of his
Yeah.
terrible language.
Oh my goodness.
It's
I mean-
great you learn a little bit about
Yeah.
language and
Yes, and
how
the
she, yeah.
and the relationship between them as well.
Yes.
And this one, somebody has written on it by the Queen.
Yes.
Uh,
I've thought that's what it was,
Yes.
but I thought I'd
Yes.
hold back just in case it was something else.
Yeah, no,
And is this her squiggles?
But that's her.
Yeah.
That's her
Her
big old
very
signature. Yes.
elaborate.
Karen, this has been a real treat. I cannot begin to thank you, well, both of you enough. I can't even believe that I'm actually seeing this.
There is such rich history at Berkeley Castle. It's literally embedded into the stone walls. To find out more about how this astonishing fortress was built, I met up with castle custodian Josh Nash.
This is the original sort of entrance to the keep, the oldest part of the castle. This
Yeah.
was like the front door, I
Yeah.
would say, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so this has been around since, what, almost 1,000 years?
Almost, yeah, 900 odd,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can see it's a much bigger archway, and then at some point it's been closed in.
Yes.
And in the archive, when Edward II was held here, he escaped twice, and after the second time he escaped, in the accounts it references narrowing doorways to make them more defendable. So we like to think that that was narrowed after Edward II escaped.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we never know
Yeah,
for sure, but
that's
it's
that makes sense now, because you're right. Now I see this enormous door, their front door to the family, but then it's been narrowed.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay, should we go up?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So this whole section of the castle that we're in now was built by the 8th Earl in the 1920s. It's an addition to the
It's
to
an
the,
addition.
to the
Okay.
keep.
But I did notice the sign that said private.
Yes, so
So
we're
I feel
going
very special right now.
we're going behind the scenes.
I am going behind the scenes. Look at this. Whoa.
Probably should have tidied up a bit before you came up.
Okay.
Turn these on. So this is all sort of storage really. It was all built in the 20s, as I said, as maids' bedrooms.
This is fantastic. I mean, I love exploring.
Okay. So when we get up here, you just avoid standing on the seams,
Okay.
the vertical seams.
Okay.
But other
Oh
than that,
my goodness.
we're good to go.
You know, I've been around the castle quite a bit, but I haven't seen this sort of courtyard, if that's what it's
so
called.
So we're on the roof of the keep, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that's the keep garden.
And that's the keep garden.
So that was in there where that grass is.
Yes.
That was the site of the original 1067 timber Motte and Bailey Castle. So if you can imagine, there was a mound
Yeah.
with a timber castle on the top,
Yes.
and then a moat around the outside.
Right.
Well, a ditch around the outside.
Side. Yes.
And then that was built in 1067. It got demolished and rebuilt twice, I think. And then in 1153, they started the work on the keep itself, which they built in the ditch surrounding the mound in the middle.
Okay. Fantastic. And then this around here, when was these bits built?
So this is the outer wall is all 1150s.
It's all 1150.
Yeah. Well, it started in
Yeah.
1150.
Yeah.
I think they could build 9 foot a year. So I probably should try and figure out how long it would have taken them to build. But you can't build too high because it'll squash all the mortar out.
Oh my goodness! So,
So-
they could only build as far as 9
Yeah.
feet every year.
A year, yeah, to give it time. The lime mortar needs longer time to cure.
Right.
So in the English Civil War, the castle, there was obviously the parliamentarians against the royalists, and the castle changed hands, I think 5 times between them, where it sort of sieged and surrendered and that sort of thing. The last siege, the parliamentarians took the castle and they took loads of the outer wall down. There was this sort of outer curtain wall there
Yes.
was originally much, much higher.
Right, right.
They demolished part of that, and then they seized the castle off the family. To get the castle back, George, the 8th Baron Berkeley, had to take down that wall there, that section of the wall, to make the castle indefensible, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
It's so interesting reading the stones of a building. It really gives you a glimpse into the past. And from the roof of Berkeley Castle, you certainly get a unique perspective of how the castle evolved.
This view is spectacular.
Yeah, those chimneys are probably one of my favourite bits of the castle. If you see, I don't think our visitors would ever really notice, or anyone hardly ever notices, but the middle one out of the three
It's different,
is
yes.
convex, yeah.
Yes. And when were those built around you?
This is 1928.
This,
Earl, yeah.
8th Earl,
Yeah.
fantastic. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, the chimneys are just stunning in itself.
That big chimney there.
Yes.
So these are all 1920s, but that big chimney is when Henry VIII held the castle.
It's magnificent to be able to be up here and just to see the wider estate. So do you come up here quite often just to check it out?
Yeah,
I'd be up here
probably
all
not
the
as much as I should do, but that's part of the course. But everything is on top of,
Yeah. This is absolutely spectacular. I've noticed just walking around, and it's something that I do look at are sort of the stones and how, this castle was built. But I've noticed, obviously, stones that I recognize, but then I see quite dotted around this stone that almost looks like volcanic stone. Obviously
yeah.
it's not.
It's not. No, there's no volcanic stone around here. So the castle was all built out of locally quarried stone. A lot of it would have come from the Forest of Dean, Pennant sandstone that would have come down the Severn and then up this river here, right to site. But this is actually, it's called Tufa stone, and it was quarried in Dursley, which is about 3 miles over there. And it's the newest stone, if that makes sense. So spring water would have come down off the Cotswold edge, heavy with lime basically and minerals, and then it settled in these great big pools in Dursley. And the minerals and the lime would have fallen out of suspension down to the bottom of the pool. And then they cut it out like cheese, basically. I was told it was like the texture of Wensleydale cheese, that sort of soft white cheese. They would have cut it out of the bottom of the pool with spades and then just let it cure on the side of the pool, and it turned into stone, basically.
It turned into stone.
And then all of these divots are just old organic matter that was in the bottom of the pool as well, that has subsequently rotted off. So it looks like it's been sort of eaten up by acid or extreme temperatures or something.
You really get this sense of being up here. It's not just as how vast Berkeley Castle is, the castle is, but the sense when you look at the stone, the amount of time, effort, money, power that was put into, creating these fortresses to defend.
Yeah, and there's a huge part of it as well was imposing themselves on the land.
Yeah.
So this would have been rendered white, rendered originally. So a lot of the stone, I won't be able to find any now, but a lot of the stone, the local stone is poor quality.
Right.
But they used it because it was quick to cut.
Yes,
and quick to build. And then they would have rendered it all. So it would have been this beautiful, pure white building on the landscape when up until that point everything was sort of timber.
Right.
And the Normans came in and just went, we're in charge.
All right, so you're telling me that once upon a time, this castle, if I were looking at it, would have been white.
Yeah, pure white.
No.
A huge sort of almost blot on the landscape, really.
Oh my gosh.
We have got bits of render left. So it was rendered up until sort of 1830, I think, or 1840 is the last entry in the accounts for rendering or pargeting, external pargeting.
It is such an amazing building and astonishing to think it's been home to one family for nearly 900 years. As we walked through the rooms of the castle, Charles was keen to show me a very special portrait in the long drawing room.
My lovely, wonderful mother, who lives in the castle, in a wing of the castle, and fantastic by a family friend. And it's got a great likeness of her with a deer hound. She always liked bigger dogs, and it's very elegant. And this was done in 1987.
Do you know what drew my attention to this portrait was the expression on her face?
Yes.
Because so many times you see portraits that it's just sort of stoic, right?
Yeah.
And there's this sort of a beautiful glance, a bit of a smile.
There is just coming through, and the artist we knew, we're family friends, and it's great.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
A beautiful dress.
Lovely dress, and here it is.
Oh, you're right.
That is the dress. Wow. And I remember when she wore it at a couple of things, but I remember her wearing it for the sitting, and she wore it before that as well.
Charles's mother, Mrs. Georgina Berkeley, has lived in the castle for over 50 years. When we met, I asked what it was like to raise a family in a castle, and a castle that is open to the public as well.
So you've raised 2 boys here, raised your family here, at the same time having the public come.
Yeah.
And what was that like all these years?
Well, I hadn't known life sort of without it, really, had I? You know.
Yes.
I remember opening the front door and getting the boys out on one occasion, and Charles screamed his head off and said, "Oh, there's people out there, lots of people out there." So I said, "Oh, don't worry, Charles, come on, quickly, on we go." And we got out of their way, and I would take them down onto the bottom lawn there. You've probably seen.
Yes, yes.
And under the big tree, and we'd sort of space ourselves out so nobody else could get down there. They played down there,
right.
little tractors and what have you.
Yes, so that you found a sort of a private part within
we
the
tried
castle.
to find,
yes.
And the keep garden. Which,
I saw the keep garden.
Well, we ended up there, I think, which was good. But I only realised rather stupidly that, of course, everyone in the King's Gallery was looking through the windows straight at us.
When you think of so many, decades here, what are some of your fondest memories?
It's a lovely place to live in, actually. You're surrounded by lovely things, which I like. And I've always loved this place, and so it's just, to me, it's just home.
Yes. And it feels, this room, and even walking around in different parts that I've been, it feels
lived in, doesn't it? Yes.
Yes.
But it's become much more not a home in the time I've been here, really.
Right.
It's more of a business.
Yes.
Weddings, and everything, which you need, you see, to keep the expense of the roofing and all that sort of thing.
Well, I know.
And we had to rewire, 5 or more, 7 years, something like that. So we had to vacate the castle completely.
When you were rewiring the
when
castle?
We were rewiring and new boilers and all that.
This is a castle. There's
Yes.
so many rooms and layers, and it's not just a quick job.
A quick fix.
No.
It isn't. You see, and the walls are so thick. A lot of the little room through there and the bathroom upstairs were dug out of the thickness of the walls by our predecessor,
right.
who made sense because they're 14 feet in places.
Oh my!
The walls
the
of
walls.
Thickness.
Oh
I still can't get a handset telephone. That.
Because it can't.
They can't get through the walls.
You can't get through.
Which I think is splendid in this day of modern technology, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's wonderful just for me personally to come and visit here, because also we have a historic house that we run as well, and it's lived in, and it's very homey, and that's what's so wonderful to be here.
Yes, and you're aware of the peculiarities.
Yes, and the difficulties, and because there are difficulties, it's, you know, we have this phrase that my husband and I always use, that it's no picnic running a historic house, even for the family that invented the sandwich. Because so, and it takes time and patience and an understanding, and also I think a sympathetic view to make sure that we aren't over modernizing and overdoing it, so that it still retains with the features that we want to retain, but also becomes a comfortable family home. But yes, we're opening it up to the public.
But also you've got the character.
Yes.
You know, I think it's a great shame to move everything.
I agree.
My husband was exactly the same. He hated change, as he always said, so nothing had to change.
Right.
And so I didn't bother.
Right.
I mean, most people would have put in more modern kitchens or whatever, you know, but
right. But
I'm
when
very happy without it.
Yes, exactly. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I also do need to ask, because whilst being here, I discovered the 8th Earl, I know from Charles and also speaking to Josh, has done quite a lot of work here, from the roof to huge, extraordinary amount. And I also found out that his second wife was American. Is that right?
Molly. She was a pain in the neck. I shouldn't say that, actually.
She's dead, so I think
yes,
it's
she's very dead. And when we had to go, she was American, as you say.
Right.
I don't want to be rude about
your
race.
Listen, we've had a couple of people sort of a couple of women ruffle some feathers in the past. So I know, and remember, you know, the Americans sort of came over during the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, and did kind of ruffle up the historic houses.
Well, I know, because the English, well, actually the British, were looking for rich wives.
Yes. So was Molly a rich?
Yes, very. She was a Lowell from Boston.
Yes.
And she married the last, as she always calls him.
Right.
In the things she's written, you know, the last Earl and all this. And married him. We had to go and meet her.
Oh, you met her?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I only the once. John met her quite a few times as a little
right.
boy, I mean, as he was growing up. And probably, in fact, he met her when Lord Berkeley was still alive.
Okay.
And they were living here. But I didn't meet her till after he died. And we had to pay for her to stay at Claridge's for, I think it was a month, every year after he died.
Oh my goodness.
So we went there once, had tea with her. We were bidden for tea. And I thought, well, it'd be civil. And I said, well, you know, do come and stay if you're ever down in Gloucestershire or anything. Come and stay, she said. You know, the only way you'll get me back there is feet first. And that was exactly what happened. She came in her coffin.
No. Oh my goodness.
Yes. I think it's hilarious. We actually made the coffin at the State Yard here with Berkeley oak. Beautiful coffin.
Yes.
And we had a little mass for her in the chapel here.
Yes. So she did come from a wealthy family.
Yes.
And then
very much
was
so.
it her money that helped?
Yes. Because Lord Berkeley, well, he had plenty of money, but, you know, doing a house up wasn't how he would look upon spending it.
Thank you for your time
No,
and for
not
just
a bit.
these wonderful, you know, memories and.
Well, I
been
haven't
brilliant.
got too many,
Yes, you do.
unfortunately. I wasn't here long enough, you know. But,
well, 50-odd years is quite some time.
well, it feels to me like a lifetime.
Yes.
I know you must feel the same.
Yes.
Having spoken with Georgina about the American Countess of Berkeley, I was keen to visit the family chapel in the church just outside the castle walls.
I've been given the key. It's one of those rather wonderful, spectacular keys. Oh my goodness. Here we go, here we go. Randall Thomas Mowbray, 8th and last Earl of Berkeley, born the 31st day of January 1865, died 15th January 1942, but this is what I'm looking for. And Mary Emlyn, which would be Molly, his countess, born the 31st day of July 1884 and died in 1975. She lived a long time, so that's 91 years. And look at this. They would have planned this beforehand, and it's, you know, quite exquisite, and it's, in one sense, sort of showing off sort of power and wealth. But usually, you can find in the vault something else. Here we go, here we go. Here we go. The last Earl. So interesting that whoever, I don't know if it was the 8th Earl himself or if it was his American wife, Mrs. Berkeley, seems to think it was all to do with Molly, making sure that he was known as the last Earl. But here it is again, the last Earl of Berkeley and Mary Emlyn, his countess. So they would have been buried right here, underneath here. It's unbelievable. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. All the carvings, I mean, this is really the family vault. And you can see the coats of arms all around, extraordinary carvings up above, and the alabaster here, I mean, beautiful. But this is how they, you know, this is how they did it. You know, these families of nobility, power, they would make sure that upon their death, that they would be seen like this for, you know, eternity. Let's see the date there, 1635, and we've got 1600s over there as well. Incredible.
Dominating the landscape in the deer park on the Berkeley estate is the most spectacular folly. To hear more about its history and the plans for the future, I met up with Charles and the estate director, Michelle Bolivar.
And here we are heading up to this fantastic folly in the middle of the deer park.
Follies were used for, I mean, why were they built? I mean, I know there are several reasons, but...
Yeah, lots of reasons. I mean, this one in particular is more of kind of a hunting lodge, so it's actually quite big for a folly. Lots of them were just eye catchers. They were places to look to on the horizon, so that you had kind of, you could show off kind of where you were going and had a point to kind of go somewhere for an indoor picnic, I suppose, as you were having a nice adventure around the estate.
Right.
The building was started in 1805. And then it took quite a few years to complete. So some follies are just like one room with a pretty view or whatever, or an eye catcher to kind of ride to or walk to. Whereas this actually has 3 big rooms, which we'll go and have a look at. So yeah, this is quite large compared to a lot.
So Charles, I mean, really, compared to the castle, this is kind of like a new build, right?
It is, relatively speaking, 900 years, and then you've got 200 years, but still.
Yeah.
It is still an old building.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Impressive.
Really impressive. And is it still used today?
We do use it a few times throughout the year, don't we?
Occasional events in the year, one or two, but we want to really get it up and running.
Yeah.
To be able to use for lets.
Yeah.
So it's in need of a bit of love and attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is brilliant. Coat of arms, you can see that everywhere. So this was, you mentioned 1805 was when the building started.
Yeah.
Which Earl was that then?
That would have been the 5th Earl of Berkeley in his lifetime.
Right, who had 12 children.
And his children would have been involved. in this.
So maybe this is where he escaped to from the 12 children.
Right,
quite likely.
A good hiding place.
Exactly, it's a very good hiding place. Oh my goodness. Wow. I see what you mean, that this could absolutely be a holiday let.
Yeah, it could, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, so this is where the bedrooms would be. So ideally,
Yes.
2 bedrooms, ensuite in both, and then obviously lovely views. And that's our potential ensuite in there.
Oh.
Not quite ready yet.
Oh, let me have a little look. Listen, I'm big on renovations. I'm doing one at Mapperton right now. So I'm doing one at a cottage on the estate. So, and it's, you know, slow,
Yeah.
but steady.
Yeah.
But this would be a brilliant ensuite
Well, it's
bathroom
quite
here.
cool. So we're in one of the turrets now. So there's 4 kind of circular little turrets to the folly. So we're trying to make the most use of the space, and it's also quite cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's a really important building, we need to do everything in a really sensitive way.
Yes.
To try and make sure we don't ruin the integrity of
Yes,
what we're trying to
of course.
achieve here. We haven't quite worked out how it's all going to fit in, have we, Charles? But
But
it will.
It will.
It will. There's some really lovely clawfoot
Yeah.
bathtubs, a little bit
Yeah.
smaller, but
Yeah.
they're lovely.
Yeah.
Real
exactly.
character to suit
And it's
the
not-
folly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, you don't normally have an arrow slit window in your bathroom.
No.
So I think
No,
that
I
should be
know,
quite-
but I'm loving all of the arrow slit windows. That is for sure. Brilliant. Okay, so ensuite bathroom
Yeah.
here. I'm envisioning it now. Bedroom here.
Yeah,
Then you walk through here, another bedroom,
yeah.
and then another staircase.
And then another staircase.
So-
Go on
Should
up.
we go on up?
Yeah. Another staircase. This is brilliant. I mean, I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless. This
is the party room.
Right, this is the party room.
Definitely.
But it's incredible because you've got these 360 views.
Yeah.
And you've got Deer Park surrounding. I mean, and the light coming in. All right, so Michelle, what are you thinking for this room?
So rough plan of attack, this would be the kind of the sitting room, the drawing room. So people will come up here, there'll be a nice fire going, they'll have lovely views if it's a sunny day, they'll have lots of fancy velvet curtains if it's not, and they'll feel cosy in here. So that's the plan for this. And I think trying to just bring it back to, trying to use our imagination, what would it have been like when the 5th Earl was enjoying it?
Yeah.
You know, and kind of have a nod to that.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Right, and then I can see 2 doors on either side.
So turrets again, so as we saw in the bathrooms below. And then what we're thinking in here, which is a nice little cosy space, is that could be the kind of little hidden away reading room. So, you know, library-esque kind of reading chair. So you can go and escape there and have some quiet time with the arrow slits and everything else in there as well.
Yeah, it's like
and
a
probably a
snug.
drinks cabinet of some
Yeah,
sort.
drinks,
Definitely bar area. Yes.
Bar,
Quite a big one.
absolutely. And then that one across.
Probably loo bathroom, so that you haven't got to go all the way down to the bottom floor when you're kind of up here with all of your stuff, and store, so you can just bring everything at once. So
Yeah, this is brilliant. I mean, this is
cool,
definitely,
isn't
if it's, I mean, I have to say, one of the best follies I know but I've ever been in.
Yeah, it is. It's
We love it. It's lovely.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, I would definitely be keen on letting it whenever that happens.
Fingers crossed.
Sign me up. But wonderful that you have, again, this bit of history that the 5th Earl left the family, and it's still standing and will be used again and again.
And I think that's what's so important, not just this building, but kind of across all estates and all historic buildings, is how do you keep giving them a future?
Yes.
Because things change, we're no longer having big hunting parties in here, that isn't what it's used for.
Right.
So how can we make it have a future, both financially and to make it stand, and so people can still enjoy it, because that's what it was built for.
Yes.
It was built so people could have a really good time in the Deer Park.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we want to keep going, really.
Yeah.
And it's in this wonderful location with views on all sides, so let's make the most of it before it deteriorates more.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And actually that's one of the biggest issues that we have here is it was built, it was beautiful. He obviously employed very good craftsmen. The stairs are a really good example of excellent craftsmanship. However, it's made out of something called mudstone, which is highly inconvenient because we're quite exposed up here, and it just starts shattering. So one of the big costs, and you can't just fix that and then forget about it, so one of the big costs that we have is we have to keep stabilising that stone. So whether that's through treatment, whether it's through pointing, whether it's just through making sure it's safe. So that's just an ongoing thing that earns no pennies at all, but that we have to spend quite a bit of money on to keep it in good structural order.
Charles and Daisy Berkeley live out on the estate in a wonderful former hunting lodge with the most amazing views. I caught up with Daisy and asked her what it's like living away from the castle.
When Charles and I married, Charles's parents were in the castle. Charles's mother is still in the castle, and she's very happy in there. You've been there, it's very warm and cosy. It's a lovely place to live. It's a very safe place to live. So it was never going to be for us for the time being. But we also, we have quite a collection of animals and some quite large dogs, which we love. And with the castle open to the public so much, I think it's open, it's open 5 days a week. And for a lot of the year, and there's lots of weddings as well, for us to be going in and out, because you can't just open the door and let them into the garden. Because we have inner bailies and outer bailies and great big doors and locks and keys and things, because it's,
it's a maze.
A proper castle. And also, poor Charles, when he married me, he did get this menagerie, which included horses. And so, yes, living where we are now, we have a barn with internal stables, we have loads of space, and we're just spoilt rotten with places for the horses and the dogs to roam free.
This house, though, how long has it been here? What's the history of this house?
And when you look at it, it looks like the most insane place to build a house, because you get hit by all the weather all year round. And it is hilarious when the storms hit and we just sort of batten down the hatches. But it was not built as a sort of family home. It was built actually originally as a hunting lodge. They believe, people have studied it, and they believe some of it was started in the 1300s. There's some very old stonework, and then bits were added, bits fell down, other bits were added. It was built as a hunting lodge for hunting deer. And who knows, maybe Elizabeth I was in this one. Because, she came to hunt deer at Berkeley, and I think she stayed for a little longer than anyone thought she would and killed most of the deer, but she may have set foot in this place as well. It has probably got a hell of a history. And
so then when did you move here?
The last tenants were farmers, and poor them, the whole thing was sort of falling down around them, and they were very stoical staying here. I think not many people would. There was no electrics. They occasionally, I think they had a generator if they wanted a bit of light. And there's also no running water.
So like roughing it?
Proper roughing it.
Fantastic.
There was a little wood burner. And we are sitting here all cosy with underfloor heating,
so warm,
living the life of life. I think they also rather loved it up here. And then it became just derelict, and there was trees growing through where we're sitting now. This wall, I think, was about to come down. There were sort of falling down pig pens. It was a ruin. And it was about to be razed to the ground. And someone made the brave decision, thought, actually, let's make it a holiday let. Which probably would have been amazing. But Charles and I saw this happening, and we thought, actually, maybe we could just get in there first. And we made the decision, and it was the most exciting thing we could have done, because to live here is just, we feel like the luckiest people alive with this view.
Daisy has a successful equestrian career, a highlight winning the team bronze medal at the Beijing Olympics in 2008.
I think the peak of my career was around the years when Charles and I married. And I think since then I've been reducing in numbers. I think, I'm getting older, and so every year, I seem to be one horse less. And I'm now down to 2. And they're 2 lovely horses, and I'm not out there competing all the time like I used to, because I think, as you get older, I want to do more things to help Charles with the castle and with projects that are going on there. I can't completely let go because
Right, yeah.
I do like, I mean, all horses are lovely, but competition horses, well-trained horses, I just love riding a lovely horse. And I think when the love is completely gone or I lose my nerve, I think that is the time to completely pull the plug.
Right, right.
I think Charles would be quite keen if I pulled the plug soon.
You married in 2009, is that right?
Yes.
And then you had, but right, that, as you said, that was the height of your career because you had the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
Yes.
And you had a bronze medal in that. Fantastic. So that
Wrong colour.
It's the right color. All medals.
At least
are,
we got something. thank
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. Career. And then after that, you married Charles. But and you know, when you knew about sort of Berkeley Castle, this was going to be where you were, you know, one day going to end up. I mean, for me, it felt a bit daunting. And had a career, but also I'm the American, so I was like, whoa, what? But did you feel that same sort of, I guess, emotion inside, like? Or did you kind of feel like, I'm going to separate the two for now? I'm going to carry on with my career.
Yes, very much so. I knew that Charles and the castle, they have an incredibly good team working. They have a very good system. Everything runs like a well-oiled machine. And yes, there's always going to be evolution of that, new things happening. And I knew Charles always said that he would love me to get involved doing whatever interested me. And we do have a lot of talks about it, what does interest me. I'm very fond of the garden side of it.
Yeah.
And Berkeley does have a beautiful garden, and I think it's rather a wonderful garden. So I would like to get more involved with that. And they've also got a new project with a kitchen garden.
Right.
And there's a new restaurant being built. And I think we want to try and have a really good project with the kitchen garden. Maybe also try and encourage a little bit of I'd love to have a little farmer's market going on. Start small, see what the farmers in the area would like to sell.
Yes.
And see where we go from there.
And I am going to ask you sort of the million-dollar question. Do you think that there will ever be a time that you will move to the castle?
I mean, we're very aware that one of the sort of USPs of Berkeley is the fact that it has been lived in by the same family since the day it was started.
Nearly 900 years. Incredible.
And we don't want to be the ones to break that chain. I don't ever see us living in it 24/7.
Right.
Because of the animal factor.
Yes.
We're never going to be without animals.
Right,
and our daughter Mary, she has ponies. She's convinced she wants to ride.
Right.
And it's much easier to be out in the middle of nowhere. We'd love to retain a small area where we can stay. And I'll do whatever he sees fit. But I know, you know, both of us do love just being able to take a step back.
Yes.
And it's almost like leaving the job slightly. And Berkeley, considering how cold and dank it would have been once upon a time, you know, as a proper, you know, fortified castle. I think the last Earl put a lot of money into it to make it an incredibly cozy place that it is. And it's a lovely place to stay, and to look out of the windows and see around you and these wonderful, incredibly thick walls. And it's an absolute treat.
The views from Berkeley Castle to the gardens are wonderful. I headed out to explore and meet head gardener Chris Gill.
Hello.
Hello.
I was told I could find you here. You must be Chris.
I'm Chris, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Julie. So nice to meet you.
And you.
So what are you doing here, really quickly, before I ask you a million other questions?
So we've got a wedding fair on this weekend.
Right.
This is one of the main areas they bring people down to because it's part of the wedding breakfast. They bring people down for drinks and things, and it's a lovely setting. So I need to really make this really, really tidy.
Yes.
And get it looking really good so that people are, want to come and have their weddings here.
Okay, so what are you snipping away at?
Just hydrangeas that have died back, so get them looking good for the summer.
Right. Now, I'd love to just pick your brain a little bit, Chris, just about the gardens here. And especially gardens are so important they're an important feature of these historic houses.
They definitely are, yeah.
Yeah, huge feature. I mean, people come to see not just the house, they come to see the gardens as well.
They would have developed along with the family, so you'd have had produce feeding the family and all the retainers, and then gradually over the years, that gets smaller, then it turns into a house for visitors,
yes.
which needs to look really good. So you then design gardens around it, more for them, the spectacle of the garden.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about that.
So that is the old swimming pool.
Is it?
Yeah. So I think that was the last Earl put that in.
Yeah.
But yeah, this swimming pool is 5 foot deep in the middle, 4.5 foot each end, which is great for a swimming pool, but not so great for a lily pond.
Right.
So we have it now as a lily pond.
Okay.
And lily's only like really 3 foot so
okay.
It makes it a little bit awkward.
So does anybody swim in it? Occasionally?
No, funnily enough.
So
even
it's
people
evolved.
falling into it doesn't happen very often, funnily enough.
So how long have you been working here? That's my next question.
33 years.
Oh my goodness. So you've really seen a lot of
a lot of changes, yeah.
And what would you say in particular has been the biggest change that you've seen or you've done yourself in these gardens? Because they're quite terraced up.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I'm the only full-time gardener now, so we have to. It's a lot more mechanised than it used to be, which has to be to get work done. It has to look good in the summer.
Yes.
So I absolutely adore roses. So every space I get, I put more roses in. We've changed quite a lot of the gardens around over the years, just because you need to.
Yes.
Things need to change. You can't stand still with it.
No, you can't. Yeah. I know that from experience of visiting so many historic houses, things have changed so much over the past 100 years, and in particular after the 2 world wars. But
yes,
what was it? Yeah. Prior to that big change, that big shift.
Well, it was very labour intensive up to that point. Yeah, before certainly the First World War, there were 33 gardeners. Would have been working in the grounds. Wow. Mostly doing produce for the family and the staff. So
I do have to ask this, since you've been here for 33 years and you've seen all these changes, but do you have a special part in the garden that you just love?
To be honest, no. It's a whole.
Yes.
And things change. Part of the garden will change, and that bit will be my favourite bit for that part of the season, maybe. And then, and there's always going to be parts of the garden that I'll go, I really need to get on with that. I need to sort that out because that's not looking good. So yeah, it does change, definitely.
Yeah.
I think probably the gun terrace, the one on the top there. Is possibly my favourite bit.
Where the tulips were?
Yeah, because you just get, I change that in the spring and summer, so I always put the summer flowers out there. And that's the first thing people see, so it has to look impactful, it has to look really good.
Yeah, it's the first thing I saw, and then I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, I'm going to come down into the gardens. So it works.
Yeah, and that gives me, because it's got these beautiful walls giving a lot of heat, it produces a fantastic environment, and you've got south facing as well.
Yes.
So you can grow all kinds of tender plants there, which, it's a really good aspect. So that probably is my favourite bit. Yeah.
Oh.
And across from the gardens, the redevelopment of the late 18th century kitchen garden was just getting started.
All right, there's a lot of noise going on behind me. Explain to me and to everybody what is happening and where we are.
This is our massive step change project. So what we're going to try and do is build a new building, so cafe, visitor centre, toilets, shop, basically, and then that will help our visitor business at the castle, but it will also be a really funky place for Berkeley town to come to and enjoy kind of every day of the year. That's the plan.
That is it. But we are in what would have been a big kitchen garden, is that right?
Absolutely. So it would have had, there's all glass houses along this back wall.
Yes.
So, and you can almost see the remnants down there. So that's project number 2. There would have been, and one of the big bits here, we want to recreate it. So this would have provided a lot of the food for the castle at one point.
Yes.
So we want to try and recreate that as much as we can. So historic planting, reinstating fruit trees. We'll have peaches and apricots espaliered along the sunny walls. We'll have herb gardens, and then we've still got the veg garden down there, which we will keep and kind of keep working on.
Right.
So yeah.
Fantastic. No, because when I spoke to Chris, your wonderful head gardener, he did tell me a little bit of the story that at one point, 100 years ago, and like all these historic houses, they had 33 gardeners and they had this huge kitchen garden, and that's what these kitchen gardens were used for. They were used to feed the castle and the community around. And obviously we've evolved very much so, and we now open up our houses to the public. And we want the public to come in, but in a different way.
Exactly. We want to be able to grow things in here that then the caterers can then make into something lovely.
Right, yes.
So that's the plan.
How wonderful.
Isn't that cool?
It's
but this
really
is step
cool.
change for Berkeley. This is a really big project.
It really is.
Every historic house owner strives to make an impact for the long-term benefit and survival of the buildings and estate. So I asked Charles if this is one of those legacy projects for him at Berkeley Castle.
I think it's one of many things I'd like to see for, that people can look back on and say, this was in my time, and just making the place, improving, adding to what's here.
Yes.
I'm not really someone, I've got to make this big mark, just lots of things that hopefully stand the test of time. And the fact it's happening now, I think it's the right thing.
Yeah, well,
it seems like the right thing.
You're incredibly humble, because I can tell you, I'm pretty certain that people will remember, and they do, that you're the one that sort of decided, hey, let's do something different here.
I do believe it's so important, and there is a need for something like this, and I think it will be very good for the community and for visitors. And we have a lot of people within a few miles of here who may not have come here. We're offering something amazing that is bowing to, the history of Berkeley and the estate. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, it is really important.
From a very operational perspective, we've got a brilliant, really strong team of guides, but in terms of catering, people don't want a job for 6 months. We've got to be really realistic. People want a full-time or a permanent job.
Yes.
And this way we can hopefully do that, which again gives us kind of a link to the community, because, hopefully they can come and help and work with us on it.
It's
so
very important.
It's really brilliant. So let's talk about timeline really quickly, because of course, there's so much work going behind me. Now, where are you as far as the project goes? What stage are you at? And I see you're holding a clipboard as well.
So that's just the floor plan of. The whole point of this building is to actually be, this sounds awful from an architect's point of view, is to be really boring. We don't want it to be the focus. The walled garden is the focus. This sits quietly in a corner. So it's got to be a lot of things.
So this is just the layout. And
so this is just the layout, yeah. So you can see with outside access into toilets, so coach groups, etc. can go there. The biggest kitchen we could get in, but every chef always wants a bigger kitchen, so we've had to just be practical. And then the biggest space, and this is going to have lovely bifold doors on the front, so it's very much an inside-out space. You're in a beautiful garden, you're in a sheltered space. From the financial point of view, this is a long time coming. This building needs to work really hard.
Yes, it does.
So it also needs to be as flexible as possible. And so that's kind of what we try to achieve.
I mean, listen, you're talking to the yogi here, and I'm thinking, gosh, you could do yoga classes here. You could do well-being days here. And that's something that we have done at Mapperton. So we have a similar layout in our stable block. It looks very similar to this, and it's our cafe as well. But every Friday we have yoga. We just started it this year, and it's doing tremendously well. And then we have lots of people asking to do different events, and they're local artisans, or it's crafting, or it's well-being, and they.
Exactly. And I think if we could really link to kind of the food story, we've got food production in the kitchen garden. We've then got food production on our estate, wider estate with our tenant farmers. There's got to be some synergy there that we can really bring in. That's what we're planning for.
And that's where we can use it, I think, here. I
mean, brilliant. I'll come back. I can't wait. I've invited myself like 3 times already.
Anytime.
You're welcome. Whenever you fancy.
Clearly
Whenever.
coming back. Today, I'm visiting one of the great castles of England, Rockingham Castle in Northamptonshire. It was built over 900 years ago, and throughout its history, it has transformed from a military stronghold and symbol of royal power to a domestic country house and intimate family home. Join me as I explore Montague family connections, literary and artistic inspirations, plus I'll be lending a helping hand with some of the daily tasks which are all too familiar to me living at Mapperton. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Athelhampton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Hi, Julie. Very lovely to see you.
Nice to see you.
Come in, come in.
Thank you so much.
It's cold.
It's cold
Thank
out
you.
today.
No, it's definitely that January post-Christmas day.
But I'm feeling the warmth in here, that's
Ah,
for sure.
well, come into the fire. So, Julie, here we are in the Great Hall. This is part of the original Norman castle. It was the hall that was built by when William the Conqueror.
William the Conqueror.
Yes, ordered it in 1067. We know that. We also know that it was in the Domesday Book at 26 shillings value in 1086.
Unbelievable. So really, I'm standing on 1,000
You're
years
standing,
of history.
Absolutely.
And you know, the Great Hall is, for me, is just a fascinating concept because it's really where everything happened. Is that right?
Well,
everything.
Well, you've got to have a little bit of imagination because what you're in today is a Tudor construct.
Okay.
Which is 400 years, 500 years later.
Right, right.
The original Norman Hall would have been a big barn, going straight up to the ceiling, a couple of open fires, reeds and rubbish on the floor. The king would have been living at the far end, and everyone else and dogs, and don't ask me where they went to the loo, because the smell and the feel, you've got to be sort of, it's very difficult today, it would have been quite sort of earthy.
Right.
It would have been twice the size.
For 500 years, from the Norman conquest to the Tudor period, Rockingham was a royal castle. During this time, successive kings and queens of England visited, with some adapting the castle to their own needs and tastes.
Edward I did the first makeover. This is 1260s, and he put in central heating. No, he put in the fireplace.
He put in the fireplace.
And he put in the windows.
Okay.
And he built, up there would have been the minstrel's gallery.
Right.
And above it, he built a chamber for his queen, who didn't like slumming it with the troops.
Right, incredible.
So you've got a lot of sort of medieval. The difficulty is you have to imagine it here because so much has been replaced by what other generations have done.
Right.
And so my family came here in sort of 1540 and finished doing the reconstruction because the date is 1579 on the beam.
So your family arrived here Tudor period.
Tudor period.
Tudor period. So your family's been here since, well, what, 450 years?
So
incredible.
Shall we go through to the library and have a coffee?
Yeah, I would love that. But I have just spotted, rather, I mean, this is quite a beautiful portrait of Elizabeth I. I assume it's her, yes?
Yes, it
Am I
is,
right?
yes. It's painted by Gower. It's quite a young portrait. I think probably painted when she was probably 20, 25, 30.
Right.
She doesn't look all, not like those later ones where she was very much an icon and heavily
very fierce
made
looking.
up.
Yeah, exactly. But did she ever visit Rockingham?
No, but she stayed locally, and she had lots of. One of the extraordinary things about this part of the world, it was very, very rich, particularly Tudor houses and wealth, because a lot of her closest advisors lived close by. So there's William Cecil, who was at Burley, which is only 15 miles away. You have Apthorpe, which was another palace. Fotheringhay, which is where Mary Queen of Scots was executed. That's 15 miles away, but there's nothing there. It's just a mound, very fine church.
Right.
You have Kirby Hall, which is literally 4 miles away, which is semi-ruined, but was Christopher Hatton's house. It was
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
You know, we are so rich in big houses, big estates, but it's all of that. A lot of it is around that Tudor period.
Is around that Tudor period. I know when I was driving here, there were so many brown signs telling me to go to visit this hall and this house.
Yeah.
But it's really rich with historic houses around here. You could just castle hop all day long.
Oh, you could. Well, I should have said, of course, well, the Montague connection at Boughton.
Yes, no, of course. I did see the sign to Boughton on my way here. Exactly.
Let's get have a coffee.
Great.
But Julie, actually, this is part of the joy of Rockingham, is that it's been mucked about with over the years as each generation has adapted it to its own use. You've just walked out of the medieval hall.
Yes.
You're now into a Victorian, rather heavy, but Victorian staircase to take access to the first floor. A corridor that was added on to the Tudor wing so that you didn't have to go from room to room, that you had a bit of privacy. And then you go back into the Tudor house.
So I'm going from medieval, Victorian,
which is 1850.
Right.
To back to 1560.
To Tudor here.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then you're into a room which was 2 rooms, being turned into 1 room by the Victorians as a library.
Right.
And then redecorated in Georgian style, so 1760, by the Edwardians, which is, you know, so it's all a bit bogus, really.
So the Edwardians came in here, redecorated it, but Georgian style.
Georgian style. Well, it was very interesting. There was a sort of reaction, as you get with every generation, that sometimes you like what went prior, sometimes you don't. When I came here as a child, anything that was Victorian was despised. It was disgusting. It was grotesque. It was over the top. Nowadays, actually, it's much more fashionable.
Yes,
People
yes,
quite
no,
like
it is. It is
Victorian stuff.
It is.
Come and sit down and
oh, brilliant.
have a seat
warm
by the fire.
Fantastic. And I was just, I was walking and I was looking at all your wonderful photographs of your family. So, because how long have you been here?
We moved here in '99. My father, having inherited in 1967, and as a young, I came here when I was 10 in 1971.
Okay.
So that's when we moved in, when Michael, my great uncle, handed over and moved down to your neck of the woods, down to Dorset.
Yes. So this is what I'm obviously fascinated about as well coming here, is the Montague connection here.
Yes.
So it's your, Michael Cum-Seymour, who lived here at Rockingham Castle, married Alberta Sturgis's, who became the 9th Countess of Sandwich, an American like me, her daughter Faith. So Michael married Faith.
Absolutely. They moved here in 1948. Michael had inherited the castle through the female line. We're not very good at male heirs in this family. And we also, so the female is a very important person.
Brilliant.
So I think it's been through the female line in my family about 4 times.
Fantastic.
And Michael inherited from his great-uncle, who was the last Watson. And he was 16 when he inherited, because his father, father died within 3 months of the old vicar dying, and they had double death duties, and it was a great thing. You must know.
Of course I know.
If you think after the First World War, so many estates were broken up, the young heirs had been killed on the Western Front.
Yes.
And everything was done. And Michael was determined to keep the house together. And he went off to the Navy, following the family tradition. And
age 16.
He was at Dartmouth at the time, but age 16, and suddenly inherited this great shock, and they let it. This is the love to an American, to pay the death duties.
You're kidding me.
Yep. So from 1925 through to 1932 or 33, an American family called the Emanuels,
and they left it out.
And he came and lived here with his family.
That was quite clever of Michael.
Very clever.
For 7 years.
For the American to come here, something had to be put in. One of them was baths.
Yeah, I was about to say. Many more baths.
And the other thing was central heating. And I think actually the downstairs loos were added.
Right.
So there was quite a bit of work done to make it comfortable for this American family.
That's incredible. So that American family then helped pay those double death duties.
Absolutely.
And then Michael was able to keep it in the family because so many homes were lost after the First World War.
Very much
so many homes.
He was fascinated in running the estate and making sure it all worked, and get right from the moment that he had inherited as a young man, although he had a career elsewhere.
So then he married Faith, what I think I've read is 1947.
Yes.
And then they came here and lived here. And I mean, I'm doing my dissertation for my master's on Alberta Sturgis because she was an American like me. So Faith, of course, is then half American. So Michael did marry a, half American.
It was very important. It was an enormously important source of revenue for these old tired estates to find some wealthy,
exactly,
energetic, dynamic,
American, exactly. But then they didn't have children. So what I've read is that they experienced quite.
They had huge trauma.
Yeah,
huge trauma. Faith had been married before.
Yes.
And had lovely Gemma, who Michael adopted as his daughter.
Yes.
And then Michael and Faith tried to have children, and they had. One, Francis, who lived for 3 months, and then 2 that were stillborn. And what is rather ironic is that Faith was rhesus negative, which is that issue where your blood cells attack, you as the mother's blood cells attack the baby's blood cells, and it all. And my wife is rhesus negative, but nowadays all you do is you take a jab.
You take a jab, right?
And it's not a problem.
Right.
When we were born, you had a full blood transfusion. And so poor Michael, who desperately was, to him, line was so important.
In 1967, Sir Michael Cum Seymour passed the castle and estate to his nephew, James's father, Commander Michael
My father was brought up here. This is where the family lived, and most of my uncles and aunts were born here.
Right.
And it was still pretty basic as a house. I remember Dad saying, you used to jump over the buckets where the holes in the roof were. And Michael and Faith came here in 1948 and took over the house, and they did the most extraordinary work to try and make it more comfortable. And they closed the old kitchen, or stopped using the old kitchen, created a bit of a flat at one end, which is where they lived.
What did they do to this room?
This room, they decorated it in a wonderful apple green, looked very light apple green, not heavy, beautiful.
Yeah.
Rather sort of, the curtains, all I remember, there was some brown velour, velvet curtains, so very typical of that period. But it was rather mean. There was no furniture at that end of the room. They all sat round this fireplace, and it got to a stage where all of the paint, particularly on the plaster, started to look really chipped. And then we had a crisis with dry rot, which is all these old houses, you always get something that tweaks you.
Right.
And so 10 years ago, we completely took it. It was a big exercise because you had to take all the books out, take the bookshelves off the walls, and we rehung in here and changed it from green to this drag blue. And this carpet is a modern copy of the carpet which was here, which is the one over there.
Okay.
So we created this synergy of actually making it one big room rather than it being a sort of anti-room.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a real living space. It's very cozy. It's lovely. And you must spend lots of time here.
This has always been my favourite room. Partly I love being surrounded by books. Actually brings back one of the points that's so exciting about these houses is that because they're owned in private hands and they are lived in and they're family homes, that is a real attraction to the visitor. And they love the idea that this is not just a museum. Yes. And it's, and the amount of times that I've had to go around when the children are younger and sort of kick a bit of plastic under a sofa so that it's not on display.
Exactly.
But we've been open, this place has been open for Michael and Faith used to open it rather sort of on a Thursday afternoon because it was a half-day closing, and they would come in the Great Hall and Faith would grump at them and sort of take the money, and it's also and then when we came here, my parents were much more commercial. So you've got I love it. This is a little bit of sort of history of the house is open. So this is
Look at all these guidebooks.
This is the 1950s guidebook,
right?
Which was written by my grandmother, and I'm not sure how much of it is true and how much is more sort of. And it's
some of those good
you know,
stories.
you look at it; it's about 10 pages. Not a picture in sight.
No, not a picture at all.
So that's
your mother did this.
My grandmother.
Oh, your grandmother. So this is Michael's sister.
Yeah.
Right. Wonderful.
And then you have, this was the sort of 1970s guidebook. So you know, there's the library, as it was.
Ah, as it was with the green. Yes.
And no furniture.
And no furniture. Fantastic. Okay, so that was your father.
That was the first one Dad
Yep.
did. Can you date that?
Yeah, I can. That is 1980s. Look at this.
Sort of like cartoon
brilliant.
sketchbook. Really.
It is. Oh my goodness. Look at this. And then what about that one?
This is one, well, we've actually just redone it, but this was the one that was done when we first came here. So there's some bloke with hair in the front. And red trousers. Oh, God. You know,
And look at your young family there. Yeah. But I've just turned to the Watsons of Rockingham page. Yeah. And of course, I've spotted here Lady Faith Montague, who married, obviously, Michael Seymour, daughter of the 9th Earl of Sandwich. So we've made it into your guidebook.
You've certainly made it into your guidebook.
So pleased. So pleased. Well, there we are.
I would also point out that it's not the only time that the word Montague appears. If you go right to the top of the left-hand page, Edward Watson.
Edward Watson married Dorothy, daughter of Sir Edward Montague of Boughton.
Who I think is the father of the Montague family.
Yes, he certainly is. We have one of his portraits hanging at Mapperton, and it's my mother-in-law always tries to hide his hands because she says that they look like fish, so she hides them with a plant. But that's him. He's really the founding father of our family.
We have another one as well. I think he handed them out a bit like sort of confetti. But we've also got a picture of Dorothy, which I'd love to show you.
Oh,
so
I'd love to see that. Yeah,
we're going to have a wander down.
Absolutely.
Follow me.
Lovely that we're in your guidebook. Are we in the new one too?
Yes, you are, definitely.
Okay, good.
Before showing me the painting of Dorothy Montague, James stops off in the panel room, a room at the heart of the evolution of Rockingham.
You're back in to the old Norman Hall.
Right.
And this is the other half of the Great Hall with the Great West Window. It's where the King's platform would have been. Actually, the window is Tudor, so we have to be a little bit careful. I don't think that would have been there originally.
Right.
This is decorated in about 1670. So when I talk about Rockingham having a little bit of colour from each century, this is the Carolian Charles II room.
Yes.
And it was the Lewis Watson, who is his father, had a disastrous civil war and he lost both his castle and his silver. His wife was a parliamentarian. This room is a room of reconciliation. You've got all the family coats of arms.
Yes.
It's dedicated to the mother. And this panelling, interesting enough, is pine because oak was in short supply due to the fire of London. And the Victorians stained it to look like oak.
To look like oak. How fascinating. I mean, it's just incredible what they did. So what do you use this room for today?
Well, it was the Victorian dining room. And then Michael Seymour used this to hang his 20th century pictures. It was a sort of winter sitting room. My father remembers coming in here to play parlour games. But this is when we have the house full, this is the bit at the party room.
Right.
You've got the backgammon table here, and it's the only sprung floor, so this is where the dancing happens.
So this is where it's the only sprung.
And you sit there slightly terrified that things are going on and something might get broken. But I wanted to show you this. This is the most lovely portrait of Michael.
Oh.
Captured him by Maggie Hamlin. And he was a great, great personal friend of Maggie's. He really encouraged her to get going. And they knew each other intimately, and you can just see that she's really captured his spirit and his character.
And can I tell you that I recognize this because we have the study of this hanging at Mapperton. We must have received that study from
Michael.
But it is, I mean, now for me, I've only seen the study, obviously, walking by it, and now to see the actual portrait painting is incredible. I mean, she is just outstanding. I mean,
now we need to go and see our joint relative.
Exactly. Yeah, so we are cousins, is that right?
We are. And here, I happen to know, having been to Boughton, this is Sir Edward Montagu in his finery as Chief Justice of the Pleas. And he, there is a picture of him at Boughton, and he doesn't look like that. He looks fearsome.
No, we at Mapperton.
Have you got the
we
fearsome?
have the same exact. We share that same portrait.
Really
Fearsome,
scary.
and with the ruffled collar and the hands.
These are not too bad.
No, they're not too bad. They don't look like fish. So there he is. Well,
But
he's much younger in this one, and he seems a little bit happier here.
Yes.
But look at him being very grand and putting his Montagu crest up there.
I know.
And you know.
But I think that's the equivalent of the signed photographs, isn't it?
But
it was sort of handed out to all of the acolytes.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it does say on off the executors to king.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we are, 1556.
So he was, he was the executor of Henry VIII.
Of Henry VIII.
Yeah, which is why, I'm sure, it's why we have Rockingham, because he would have, this was a royal castle. It was his. He would have facilitated the lease.
He would have facilitated the lease.
Because this is Dorothy, the daughter.
Ooh, she looks quite fierce. So that's his daughter.
Yes.
Right. So that means that she would be the aunt of Edward Montagu, the first Earl of Sandwich.
Absolutely.
There we go. We really are related,
You are.
James.
You know, there's the connection. She's quite a sort of terrifying lady. But I rather like this portrait. I think the detail, I think it probably is very accurate, and that's what she looked like.
Yeah.
You know, there's none of that sort of lily making you look terribly beautiful and rather sort of standardized face. That is what she looked like, and I love the detail of the bodice. And
do you know what's extraordinary though? You know, I came here thinking, oh yes, there's this Montagu connection with faith, and this is brilliant. But I had no idea at all of this other female connection. Right here.
Shall we go and see? There are a few more relatives, as I refer to them, the portraits in the gallery.
Absolutely.
Let's go upstairs. Now you've gone out of the medieval hall, back into the Victorian additions, rather lighter staircase, which gave access to the gallery.
To the gallery.
And the gallery was originally an exercise room. The Tudor house always had a gallery, and the gallery was there for people to exercise during the cold. You would come up here and you would walk up and you would perambulate up and down.
Really?
And it was originally a third as long, and then after the Civil War, when they rebuilt the castle after the Civil War, it was only built to 2/3 length, and then it would have been used by the Georgians to hang, which is all these big portraits.
Yes.
The sort of portraits. Yet another.
So it became a gallery.
A gallery, as you and I would know.
Yes.
And then the Victorians turned it into a sitting room. In a sense, it encapsulates the sort of the story I keep on talking about Rockingham. Everything changes, and different people use it in different ways. And today is probably the room we use least, because it's the most difficult room to use, if only because of the weight of the floor. That if you ever do anything with any volume of people in here, you have to put joists underneath to hold it up, because it floats. Then if we look back out the window, we've looked at how the house is used and how it's a domestic, I'm not going to say home, because that's probably rather grand, but actually you look back and then you've got the old medieval castle.
Yes.
And we need to go and have a look at that. We need to go and see that actually there was the defensive side, and we've still got some of that wasn't knocked down after the Civil War.
Right. Well, I can already see, even just from peering up here, that you can just see the lay of the land up here.
You can see why they chose it.
It's absolutely.
Your commanding position in this, with two natural valleys. It's quite obvious why they chose it. Shall we wander back? A little bit more exercise, possibly.
Yeah.
You stand here. What is it? It really is. It's carpet bowls, actually.
Exactly. There we go. Perfect.
When you come to Rockingham, this is what, it's a castle. It looks like a castle. It
Yes.
feels like a
Yes.
castle. You can see the curtain wall, what's left of the curtain wall running up to your right with the Norman Tower, and then the motte, which would have been behind that wall at the top, which is now the Rose Garden. That would have been where the keep was. It was dominant. We're sort of sitting down here looking up.
Yes.
You turn round and you have this, what is our sort of iconic towers. But what's really interesting about them is that they're not unique. They may be familiar to you because they are identical in size to the entrance gateway, Edward I entrance gateway to the Tower of London. The only thing about the Tower of London is it looks different, is that it's got another story. So being 3 stories, it looks slightly narrower and less dumpy and squat.
Of course, I thought it looked familiar, to be honest, yes. So Tower of London just has one more story.
Has another story in a bit, and then the crenellations.
Right, and,
So
then it's got the portcullis.
But it has the portcullis. And the reason we know that is that there was one plan when we were looking at trying to develop the visitor experience here, that people come here thinking this is a castle. And it looks like a castle with this wall, and you can see it dominates the landscape.
Yes, of course.
But you walk through, and it's like a stage set. Well, where is the medieval bit? Well, it's sort of gone and moved on. We thought at one stage it'd be quite fun to put the portcullis back, and we needed to have a template. So we sent the maintenance team down to the Tower of London because they've got a portcullis there just to see if the mechanism. And then they did the dimensions, and they're absolutely identical. So obviously, Edward I had one stonemason and one designer, and he used the same footprint everywhere. But you can with the same blueprint. But you can see here's the groove of the portcullis.
Oh yes.
Sadly, you haven't got it hanging down, and you can see where the winding gear.
Oh, of course you can. Yes. Incredible.
But we sadly decided not to do it. Actually, I thought it was becoming a little bit too much of a film set and rather ridiculous. But actually, the main reason we didn't do it is that actually you can't fit the winding gear. We've had it sitting proud of the crenellation.
Okay.
So that idea failed. But it is a medieval gatehouse.
Of course it is.
And
it's
it sort of gives you
wonderful.
a wonderful impression as you walk in.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Then you're in, and you sort of. And you imagine coming in on your horse or your carriage. It all sits up there.
And with the flag right there.
Yeah. Oh, it's very good. The flag's flying rather well today. At least you've got a bit of a breeze.
I know, the flag's looking fantastic.
So you get a sense of arrival. Why did they choose this site?
Yes.
What was so special about this site? Why here? And you can see it so clearly when you get to the edge. You can't see anything over the wall.
No, you can't.
You're climbing up towards the wall, and then you get this extraordinary view.
Look.
The Welland River running through the middle here, and you see the site, and you can see how it controls.
You can literally see mile after mile. I mean, this was the perfect spot.
So in front of you, you see the whole evolution of time of the castle. You have the cross gable of the old Norman Hall. And you know, I was saying it was twice the length. When you were inside, I said it's the whole length, and you can see it. It was an enormous tied barn.
Yes, absolutely.
The medieval castle, essentially that big building, the curtain wall, which would have gone all the way around, and you would have been
protected. Yes.
In 1544, James's ancestor, Edward Watson, was granted the lease to Rockingham from the Crown and set about transforming the medieval castle into a Tudor home.
He, first of all, built this wing, originally a third as long, came right out to the end. I don't think he ever finished it. Built the wing going that way, put the bedrooms in, so you've got the bedrooms on the first floor with the gabled end, and these 3 wings connecting to the curtain wall, and then you've got equivalent wings going up the other side.
It's absolutely fascinating hearing James decode the phases of building here at Rockingham. The English civil wars during the 17th century divided families, and like the dissolution of the monasteries in the century before, destroyed so much of England's architectural heritage.
Lewis Watson, who was the grandson of Edward Watson, who got the lease on the castle, he would entertain James I. He bought the freehold of the property in 1620 and was a successful royalist. His second wife was a Manners, who were parliamentarians and lived at Belvoir Castle. So he hedged his bets. He sent his silver to Belvoir to be safe with his brother-in-law, while at the same time flying the royal standard here, thinking he was safe in his castle. And he got it wrong because the parliamentarians captured the castle and he got locked up by the king for losing his castle in Belvoir Castle,
Oh
which
my
the king had
goodness.
taken.
Oh my goodness.
And all his silver. But he was then pardoned.
Oh, he was.
And he came back and he joined the king at Oxford and was made Lord Rockingham. And then after the Civil War, he came back here and he spent a lot of time trying to get all his bits and pieces together. But he built this little building here and lived in here while they rebuilt the rest of that. So that's a rather pretty restoration building.
1665, I can see.
On the date is on the drain pipe.
Yeah.
And then you get the Victorian additions. You've got the gallery staircase that's been tapped on there.
On there. Yes.
And then the flag tower, which was put there to balance the fact this wing's not as long as the one on the other side. So it's not this. Now I have one little secret I want to take you to.
Okay.
Because there's something, we're going back to the medieval, but we have a little surprise inside the castle.
Okay.
Come with me.
All right, exciting.
This is a house with all sorts of different bits and different quirks.
Well, there's
and
a lot of doors. That's why I'm getting
Oh my
confused.
God! You get completely confused. So you come in, and so we're now going to get into the service wing by turning left, and here you have you've got the colour scheme. You're still in the old hall. That's the butler's pantry. The bell pools.
Oh, I love those.
Brilliant. They're all a bit broken, I'm afraid.
Tower bedroom, tower dressing, tower bed. I love it.
And then you go out of the old hall. There's the wall.
So this is
That
the
is
wall.
That's the wall. So how
Oh
thick
my
it is.
goodness.
So you're out now. You're going into that first gable. Those.
Yes,
20s.
yes.
And you have the
All making sense.
the housekeeper's room, the kitchen. You're in the service part of the house.
Yes.
But we're going back to the medieval.
Oh my goodness.
A cobbled street
No.
leading up to
Okay,
what
this
would have
is-
been the keep. So here's the
I
curtain.
just feel like I'm actually like on a set of like of a medieval feature film or something.
And this is where the service wings. So you would have had your brew house. You would have had your
we walk through
stores.
it?
Of course you can.
Yeah, can I walk on this?
Yeah, you can walk on these
So
things.
it was just where all the storerooms were.
Well,
yes.
it was there's the kitchen, which I just showed you. That's the ready-use larder store. There would have been brew house, woodshed, bakery. The bakery is in here. And then that building at the end, the Victorians turned from a house into the laundry.
Incredible.
And it's if you've got a moment, we'd love to show you. It is the project to do. And so this is the problem child. It's a wonderful building, but it epitomizes the problem of owning a historic house. There are always going to be areas which need work, and this is probably the worst description of needing work. It's watertight,
Yes.
it's dry,
Okay, well,
it's
that's
safe,
brilliant.
which is great. It also, you've got to store today's commercial
course.
stuff.
I was-
These are Santa's postbox,
Exactly.
the pumpkin. I'm
For
trying
the
to think, I'm
Halloween
not
trip.
quite sure.
Look
I'm
at
not sure.
this. Look at these crows here. Who made this?
The scarecrow.
This is brilliant.
And so I thought, oh, it might make a rather smart office, until I got a quote of £750,000. Nearly,
said
I was going to
no.
say $1 million,
No.
and I thought, no, I don't think. But it'd make
No.
a very good yoga studio, wouldn't it?
It would be.
You'd
That's
love
right.
it.
I would
But it's-
love it.
And
This could
particularly
be.
the first floor would be wonderful. The light would be lovely.
That's
It'd
right.
be
You
really-
could check in everybody here, have sort of like your locker rooms down here,
Yeah.
and then you go upstairs and you do yoga. There
There
you
you
go.
are.
I'll just have to somehow raise some funds for it.
I know.
Exactly.
One of our big problems.
Exactly.
Built after the Norman conquest of 1066, Rockingham was a royal fortress, a symbol of Norman power and a strategic stronghold between North and South England.
The layout of the house and the castle was 2 baileys with a motte. So this was 1 bailey.
Right.
And the other bailey we'll see as we go around the corner. And then this was the motte with the mound, not here because this is the spoil, and there would have been a moat. The moat would have come round, so that is,
yes,
this is the moat that would have gone round the keep to act as the defence. So if you think of Windsor,
yes,
Windsor is exactly the same design as Rockingham. It's the same designer built Windsor that built Rockingham. And so the keep would have been here with a motte originally on top with a wood stockade, and then it was stone. And it was you can imagine, you see the dominance of that keep. And it was there until the Civil War. And then at the end of the Civil War, the parliamentarians said that these places could not be refortified. They knocked them down.
Here at Rockingham, you get a real sense of how vast the castle complex would have been.
In the 1670s, Lewis Watson, the son of the fellow who was here during the Civil War, basically came and he created a 17th century terrace garden. So you come up, every level is slightly different, and they're all about 5 steps. And then they've created, there's a sort of pleasure walk that goes up the side of this mound. But if we go up to the top of the mound, by the bandstand, you can look over and see the layout of the old keep, or the fortifications of the keep, which are turned into a Victorian rose garden.
This is wonderful.
Lizzie and I created the garden around the outside because there was nothing. There was a couple of very narrow beds and a couple of big Victorian cherries which fell over.
How clever. It's actually really, really clever. This is not what I was expecting when you said come visit the rose garden.
I know.
I mean, I know they're not out right now, but I was not expecting this. This is sensational.
And then the round bit is where all the gun ports were. And then if you go this way, Julie, you can see the dominance of it over the rest of the castle. No, but it's rather wonderful to feel that actually we've been able to do something in this garden to leave a bit of a legacy with this creation of the new garden here, linking, and given it's only 15 years old, these yews have done amazingly, and that they're now the same height as the yews on of the Victorian
It's incredible.
garden.
It's absolutely incredible. And I like what you said, it's just, you know, it's always adding on, every generation, adding on to what is already there, but putting your mark on it.
Leaving a little bit.
Yeah, leaving a little bit. I will definitely have to come back here in June.
You need the end of June, the best weekend, the end of June, beginning of July, is when the roses suddenly come out. We're not a rhododendron azalea garden, we're limestone, but roses love this place.
But roses, it's all about the rose here. I love it.
There's a long list of tasks that need to be done every day at Rockingham Castle. I'm meeting up with caretaker Pete Smith to lend a hand.
Morning.
Hello. I'm ready.
Good. You ready for it all?
I'm
Let's do it.
I'm so excited. Let's do it.
Okay.
Which way?
To the right.
Pete lives on site here at Rockingham, tending to the fabric of the building and making sure everything is shipshape each day.
Okay, there you go.
Right.
You're in.
There's a lot of keys and they're heavy as well.
Yeah.
So, and you carry them around all day.
All day, just in case we need a key.
All right, what's the plan?
So, head down this way.
Yep.
We'll do the fire. Check the fire, make sure it's still lit. Put a log on it.
Yeah.
Then through to the panel room, naval lobby, library, stone passage.
How many steps are we going to do?
Around about 20,000 today.
Great. Just in the castle, we're going to do 20,000.
Yeah, just in the castle. So
you don't have to leave the castle to get your daily amounts
No,
in.
up and downstairs.
Incredible.
So the first task is to stoke the fire in the Great Hall, and there's quite an art to it.
It's warmer in here.
A lot warmer.
A lot warmer.
Fire goes 24/7.
The fire goes 24/7?
It does in the winter months, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We'll go for a smaller log first.
Okay.
So if you pick up the front one.
Okay. Oh,
and
I like this little gate here.
That goes like that.
That goes like this?
Yeah, so it's leaning up.
Oh yeah, okay.
If you do it the other way, it smokes.
Oh yeah, no, we don't.
Yeah.
I know about that. We don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want smoke.
No, okay, so,
That's it.
Like a little bit more or here?
That's it, that's good.
Is that really? Mm.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, okay.
Bang on that.
And you're just going to do this throughout the day?
Every time we walk past, if it's burnt down, we'll put another log on.
Incredible. So this
And we'll
just
bring some
stays
more
on.
logs in later on.
Right. That is brilliant. Okay. Fantastic. All right, that's done.
Okay, so as we're walking around, we'll check all the lights. Make all
Yeah, I know all about light bulbs, Pete.
Make sure no bulbs are blown.
Yeah, but I mean, every day you must find one.
Every time we've got to walk around with your head up. Don't walk around with your head down.
All right,
Okay.
so we can take this one off the list.
This one's off the list.
Great Hall ticked.
Done.
All right. Whoa, this is dark.
Yeah,
Well, this is really dark.
just on the right-hand side.
It's on the right-hand side, which there's like a lot here.
Yeah, the bottom one.
Bottom.
We'll go for the bottom one.
Mine's like, there's.
And then
okay.
the next one.
And the next one.
And the next one, and the next one. So
And the next
remember, you've
one?
got to check all the bulbs. All good?
No. Yeah, I think it's all good.
All right.
What about shutters?
2 bolts.
Yeah.
Lift the 2 bolts up.
2 bolts up.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoop,
Oh,
it came
not
out.
right out.
Okay.
Let's put that slightly in and just turn it.
Never gonna be invited back. I'm just, okay.
Up,
Okay.
turn. Drop
Okay.
it down.
Uh-huh.
And folds.
Yeah. Which way?
Like
It
that.
folds in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it fits in. We have
And
these
fold
as
again.
well. Fold again.
And then it goes into that.
And then it goes into that. I love these.
Fold it again.
So fun. I'm sure you're much. I know that you're super fast at this. I know I'm taking my
No,
time,
it's
but
all right.
I just don't want to break anything. Tick off the list.
Tick off
Next
bulbs
room.
So next is the library. All 4 lights on.
All 4 lights.
Yeah, all
okay.
4.
1, 2, 3, 4. It's interesting.
Press the button.
Yeah. So you've got button ones. We don't have. I like the button
Yeah,
style.
security.
I really like the button style. Wish
So
we had
because
that.
we've not got visitors today,
Yep.
we can leave the blinds down.
We can leave the
'cause
blinds
it stops
down.
the sun coming in and fading the furniture.
Exactly.
There you go.
Right. And
Some have got buttons, some haven't.
Some haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And then your last one,
And I'm checking bulbs. What about those bulbs there?
they're non-usable.
Oh, they're decorative.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. Bulb.
Bulbs. All the bulbs are doing. Stone passageway next.
What were
So
there?
before we
13?
go then, Julie, what we need to do, conserve electricity.
Oh.
We need to turn some lights off.
Oh,
all
you
off.
do? All off, 'cause now
Unless
you've
we've got
opened the windows.
visitors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Again, checking the bulbs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Thank you
Make sure all the bulbs are on.
for the reminder.
And then
More of
a
this.
bolt at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pull that up. Turn it. Button.
Yeah.
Push.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. That one's a hard one, obviously.
Then fold.
Okay. This one. And here we go.
This is all very familiar, but takes quite a while. I think it even beats how long it takes to draw all the curtains at Mapperton each morning.
And check bulbs.
Check bulbs.
Did I check bulbs in there?
Yeah.
Just checking those. Yep, all look good.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I wanted one to be.
I know.
I know. They're up. You've
Come
done
tomorrow
such
and about 5 or 6
you've
will be
done
out.
Such a great job. Done such great. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. Shutters.
Yeah, shutters again.
Okay. How long have you been here at Rockingham?
4 years and 4 days.
Oh, it's quite lucky.
Yeah.
4 years and 4 days.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And before that?
Before that, I was in the army. I was in the Household Cavalry.
No.
Blues and Royals.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So how many years were you doing that?
I joined in 1976 and I left in 1992.
That is a long time. So can I just ask, did you have to wear the...
It's helmet
Yeah.
and plume
the plume.
and cuirasses
And you
or
did-
breastplates, people
Right.
call them. Did riding school. Riding school's good experience. Garter service at Windsor.
Yes.
Escorting
Incredible.
from Victoria Station to Buckingham Palace.
How many times have you been sort of inside Buckingham Palace, as in the gates?
Oh, inside the gates?
Yeah.
Too many times, I can't remember.
Right. Too many times you can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
That's incredible.
What we need to do is go upstairs now and raise the flag.
Okay, here we go.
So, through the door, put the light on.
Ah.
Light on the left-hand side.
More steps, though.
More steps.
More steps.
So we're at the moment, we're on
Yeah, what are we?
1,929.
Okay, I'd really like to get to, you know, we're going to get to that 2,000.
2,000?
2,000.
Oh, easily get to 2,000.
Easily, but this has been quick, and we've already
Yeah.
done 2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've only got another 18,000 to go.
Exactly. I just got to stick with you all day long, and I'll get there.
So we've got 56 steps to do.
Here we are.
This is halfway.
What?
Well, 2/3.
We're going to
So
go.
we've got the gym. Now we're going further up.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, here we go. No wonder you're in such great shape, Pete.
Keep going.
We're hanging the flag.
This is the flag. This is the ladder we're going up to hang
I
the
love
flag.
it. Okay.
So-
do you have a fear of heights?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Have you?
No, I don't have a fear of heights. I have a fear of cows. Do you have a fear of cows?
No. Why a cow?
No, I just.
The only good thing about that,
Uh-huh.
there's not many cows up here.
I know. I haven't.
So we'll be all right going up
I
there.
know. I know. So I'm fine with
So you'll be
heights.
fine.
Not with cows.
Unless there's a cow up there. But I don't think there is.
Unless you knew about my fear and you stuck
Yeah,
it up
put
there
one up
with
there.
me.
Right,
I'm
I'll come
in.
up now.
And there's no cow.
There's no cow, that's good.
Just a height. No, I don't have a fear of heights, luckily. I love this. This is incredible.
Right.
Okay, I've never.
Never raised a flag?
Never.
Never?
Never. No, never.
Do not let go of the ends.
Okay.
If we let go of the ends, you know what we've got to do?
No.
Shimmy up the flagpole to get
Okay.
the rope.
Oh my God. Okay.
Or we could lower it down. What we
And
need to do,
By the way, what is this flag?
this is the griffin.
This is the griffin.
The family griffin.
The family griffin.
What we've got to make sure is it's the right way up.
Oh.
We don't want the griffin upside down.
Have you done that before?
Yeah. And put the Union Jack up wrong way as well.
Okay.
Being ex-military, that didn't go down well.
Okay. The griffin.
So there's the griffin.
Okay.
That's the top one. So we unhook them.
Okay.
I'm going to keep hold. I'll keep hold.
Okay, I'll keep
you
hold.
Keep hold of that.
I'm holding
So,
this.
Yeah. That wants to hook through there.
Okay. Hook through here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
That's
hooked. Hold it.
Okay, so we can pull.
So now I'm going to pull.
You're going to pull until we get the bottom rope. So
Okay.
keep pulling. Go on, go on, go on. Keep going, keep going.
I love
keep going.
this. This is amazing.
All right. Hold it there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, through that one.
Okay.
Okay, got it?
Yep, got it.
I'll hold that. I'll swap you again.
Okay, pull.
And pull.
Oh my gosh, this is so
Keep
much
going.
fun.
Till we get to the top.
Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. This is amazing. Okay, well, Pete, I think it looks pretty darn amazing. What do you
Yeah,
think?
it's pretty good. It's blowing as well.
How fun.
Yeah.
I know it's blowing.
Yeah,
So
and we
fun.
can see the griffin. And guess what? We got it the right way.
Thanks
That's
to you.
the best.
To celebrate the 950th anniversary of the founding of Rockingham, there are a series of events and festivities planned. And over the past 2 years, a group of embroiderers have been stitching the castle into the history books. Taking inspiration from the world-famous Bayeux tapestry, which illustrated the Battle of Hastings, the Rockingham panel tells its own story.
Hello.
Hello.
I was told I might find all of you here.
Attic.
Oh my goodness. This is the place.
This is where
It's
it
where it's
happens.
all happening.
This is where it
This
happens.
is incredible.
So we started in October 2019, and we're just in the last few stitches now.
Oh my goodness,
really.
this is brilliant. You know, what's so wonderful is that, of course, embroidery, when you visit historic houses and, of course, Rockingham Castle, there's embroidery everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's embroidery. It was such a wonderful sort of pastime.
It is.
And it's wonderful that you're, you know, bringing it up to the 21st century.
Absolutely. And this really is, even though it has William the Conqueror ordering Rockingham to be built, right down here we have 2021, which is when it was due to be finished, but COVID obviously has delayed it, with a COVID symbol and a little mask, and it's going to be ready this year. This year.
This is brilliant. So who came up with that clever design?
Our wonderful
Gail, that
artist.
that is very, very clever. So you have William the Conqueror, obviously.
He
Is that
is,
right?
Yes. This is his crowning,
Okay.
his coronation. He was crowned immediately, so he could, because the coronation is the important part, so he could begin to take control of the rest of the country. And to do that, he ordered castles to be built throughout. And Rockingham Castle is one of those castles.
Of course.
That's the date along there. It was 1066 is the famous date of
Yes,
the battle.
of course.
1068 to 1071. That is the building of the castle here. But of course, originally it's a motte and bailey castle, because here we're on an escarpment. We were in a forest. surrounded by woods.
Yes.
Very high up, so the remnant of the Motte and Bailey Castle is now the Rose Garden.
Is now the Rose Garden.
And the last half of it is the modern day Rockingham, with these Edward I's round towers.
Round towers there.
And we have the...
Wonderful.
We've got the family here.
And you've got, oh my goodness, yes.
So this is James in
Yes.
his Lord Lieutenant outfit. 2 daughters, Henry the son and Lizzie, standing, telling us all about the castle.
How fantastic. That is brilliant. And who's on the horse over there riding into?
That is from the Bayeux, so we've linked it.
Yes.
We put the traditional horse there in the modern part to link the panel together.
Fantastic, with the flag, riding with the flag, which I've just hung. So yeah, it was wonderful. It was absolutely, it was breathtaking. How brilliant. Can I just ask, what kind of stitching is this here? Because
it's called the Bayeux stitch, but it's couching.
It's called,
okay. And so you lay down threads
right,
like this, and then you have to go over the top at right angles.
I see.
And just hold them down with a little stitch. And so I'm just doing narrow pieces, but this piece will have been worked like that.
Exactly.
So you lay down the threads and then you go over the top in the opposite 90-degree angle and hold it down with little stitches.
And the Bayeux was all
done like that.
All done like that.
This is French knots,
yes,
which would not have been on the Bayeux.
Right.
But it gives it
texture. It gives it the texture.
Depth,
exactly.
Very tactile.
But that looks complicated as well.
It is.
Yes.
Yes. So I did the French knots, and I did those specifically because this is how a motte was built. A layer of stones, a layer of dirt. I should have counted how many knots.
Yeah, I know.
I would love to know how many I did. It took, I don't know how many days. Several.
So you do let people give a stitch, is that right?
We do.
If you
Would
ask
you like a go? Can I please do just one stitch? And I promise not to mess it up. It's just a stitch.
We have a thread ready for you to go.
Oh, you do?
Here.
Okay. Now, I used to stitch when I was younger, but it was a long time ago.
We're just putting little yellow dots to look like flowers. So if you want to put some somewhere.
So I could just do one.
You just do one.
Just do one, everybody. Just do one, everybody. So I'll just go through here. Okay. And then I see, so you've got to go all the way under there. Find it. There you are. Excellent. I might do a bigger one.
Yeah, go on. Do another one.
Next stitch.
Okay.
Be brave.
Okay, there we go. Oh, I'll go right here. Okay, yeah, I'll do a much bigger one. That was just a little speck.
Now be careful, you might have to go home and start your own.
I know. Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, what can we do for Mapperton? Mapperton was in the Domesday Book, so I could do.
You could.
I could, start from there. There we are. Yeah, that is lovely.
Just bring the needle back up somewhere, and then be ready for
the next one. Sure, here we go.
That's lovely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you so much for
pleasure.
letting me be a part of the 950th anniversary of Rockingham.
What an exquisite historical record. And I'm so thrilled to see a traditional craft continuing here at the castle.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Julie.
My name's Dean. I'm the
Hi,
head gardener.
Dean. Head gardener? Wow, amazing. I'm honored to meet you. Anytime I meet a head gardener, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are absolutely incredible.
No, we'll get that far.
So wow, so here we are in the Rose Garden, which
yes.
My understanding is this is where the keep used to be.
It is, yes, and if you look at the design of the garden, it's actually designed to look like a keep still, with the yew being the different entrances, and we also have box-shaped yew on the outside, which are the soldiers marching back to the keep. So we've tried to keep that so it's in keeping with what its original purpose.
So this is the rose, these are all roses here, yes?
They are. It's a traditional formal rose garden, which is not as common as it used to be, really. So.
And so tell me what you're doing now. And are these, can I ask, because I know a tiny bit about roses, are they new roses or old roses or a mixture?
They're a mixture.
They're a mixture.
They are old style hybrid tea roses, which we don't really use that term anymore, but these are the taller, larger flowering varieties. So,
right.
Yeah,
brilliant.
there is a mixture of all different things.
So I suspect it just must look absolutely spectacular.
It does,
And
yes.
Is it, what is it, end of June when they're in full
Probably,
bloom, would you say?
yeah, probably a little bit early in that here because we are quite sheltered with the yew hedge all the way around. So we have quite a long season of roses.
Right,
So, yeah.
well, that's brilliant.
And my observations from talking to people that have come is that it's a very romantic garden. And obviously there's nothing more romantic than roses. And you know, when you're working in here, it's really nice because you do see couples and they're often taking pictures of each other with the roses and things like that. So it's lovely, sniffing the roses and all those sorts of things.
That's so lovely.
So that's really nice. And we've got obviously the fantastic views and everything.
Yeah,
So yeah,
no,
it's a romantic type garden.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've done a lot of planting right now. These are all new roses.
No, not all of them are new. A lot of it, we're in rotation. So we're rotating a lot of the older roses out. They've done their job and, you know, it's time for them to have a rest, as it were. And but we've got to plant lots of new roses, over 200, to get the garden back into where it needs to be. But the problem is that roses don't like being where roses were before. So rose replant disease is a real problem for a garden like this. And the old method, I mean, scientifically, we don't exactly know what causes it. Even now, with all the scientific discoveries we've had, we're still not exactly sure why roses fail. I mean, there's lots of pathogens and different things in the soil, but, and so, you know, there's various methods of getting over that. But the main method that people have been using for years and years is the one where they take out all the soil and then replace that all with fresh soil and take all the old soil away. And the problem with that is it's not only, you know, back-breaking, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of cost, but also it's not very ecologically sound either. And so what we're doing, and hopefully successfully, is doing a slightly different method, whereas we're planting them in recycled cardboard pots.
So you're going to actually, you're going to put in the cardboard?
Yes.
With it?
Yeah, that's right. So it's...
I've never heard, is this something new?
No, it's not. It's not new. As anything in gardening, there's no such thing as a new idea. But mostly it would be something I would recommend somebody to do if they were doing one in a border.
Okay.
But it's not very often you do 200 of them. But yeah,
you're going to try it out.
This is going to try it out,
You're
yeah.
gonna try it out.
So the idea would be is this little self-contained environment. It's got compost in there, and its roots will grow. In the first year, we'll take very good care of it, and its roots will grow. And as the water penetrates into the cardboard, that will break down into the soil. And then the first tentative roots will go out into the old soil, and hopefully, because it's bigger and stronger by then, and we've taken care of it, it will be able to withstand any attack, just as the old roses do.
Fantastic.
But all the cardboard as well, it's recycled from things that we brought in the summer, from the different packaging. So
brilliant.
It's all good, and the compost we made here ourselves in the woods. So
oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah. So it's local and it's
that's
recyclable. It's fantastic for the environment. All of that, right?
Hopefully, yeah, and hopefully, I wouldn't say it was completely work-free, but I think it's a lot less work than digging them all out and replacing them anyway. But what we want to do is make a round hole, and so we can drop it straight in. So yes, that's why we've got. So what we've got here are spades that we normally use for digging post holes.
Yes.
So not your normal spade.
No, not at all.
And then what we've got to do is measure how big the pot is against the spade.
Yep.
And then go for that height. So we'll move this line out the way.
Okay.
So if I do this one and drop her in, then you can have a go at the other one.
Okay.
So
wonderful. Okay.
It's all part of the process. So what we want to do, we want the edge of the pot, that's quite good actually, we want the edge of the pot to be just above, just above, because we don't want too much of that old soil to go into that.
Okay.
So, and then we just backfill.
And then you backfill it.
And basically, the other thing, there's no firming down, there's no
stomping
on it. We're not going to move any roots. And basically, we're going to let the weather do the job for us.
Yeah.
So what will happen there is that the frost and the wind and all those things will go in and compact that soil, you know, firm it back round the pot. And then we've got a lovely growing environment. The only thing I would say is taking care of it is that you've got to remember until the cardboard breaks down, it's in a pot. So you've got to water it as if it's in a pot.
Ah,
yes.
okay.
So you've got to be careful with the watering when it starts off.
Right, so you've got to, okay. So where would you like me to make my mark?
So if you want to go, they're about 18 inches apart.
Okay.
So quite close, but because it's a rose bed, you want it nice and full. And if you want to have a go there, and bearing in mind, you're trying to make a round hole.
Yeah, a round hole.
A round hole, yeah. So you've got to be, yes, more straight down the sides.
Okay,
There's lovely Rutland clay there for you.
That's right, exactly. Okay, I'm going to make this round hole.
Oh, she'll feel it once we've done 200 of these.
Yeah, is this only your first 2?
No, we've done a whole bed over there actually. So, but I've got a very good team as well. They'll be here helping me.
Yeah, because I can already feel this in my back. So
yeah, that's right. I don't think I'd like to do it all on my own. No.
No. I'm going to have to do some yoga after this for sure to stretch it out. And I've only done 1. Okay.
But it's yeah, still better I think than taking the entire 2 tons of soil away.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to just dig all that out.
I think we're getting there now, you know.
Okay, what do you think?
I think we're there, yeah. I think we're there, yeah. So we'll measure her up. The only other thing as well you've got to be careful of is that the pots don't get horrendously wet, because then you haven't got a pot, more of a mush.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
I think that's okay, because that one's quite deep in its pot, so
yes.
If you just backfill around that and
okay, so I'm just going to backfill
yeah, just gently
it.
backfill around it and push it back in, and we're good to go.
Okay. Here we go.
And hopefully you'll come back and take pictures of them when they're all flowering and wonderful.
We will absolutely come back, because you know, this is, as you said, rose gardens. Just everybody loves a rose garden.
They do. Even, I mean, we have so many wonderful plants these days, but you know, there's something about the mystique and romance of a rose that really, people.
All right, what
really
do you think here, Dean?
I think that's good. Yes,
I'm happy with that. Are you really happy with that?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So we shall remember that one. We shall label it.
I hope it survives.
Julie's Rose.
Julie's Rose. I really hope it survives.
Yes.
Brilliant. But listen, how fascinating to be able to do work like this that also is environmentally friendly.
Hopefully,
good for the soil.
I think we all have to think that way now, you know, and
Yes.
it's even if you're working in ornamental gardens, you've still got to, you know, lessen the impact environmentally. And of course we are growing things as well, so, you know, that's good for the environment,
of course.
Everything that we grow. But yeah, I mean, and also it's finding new ways to keep the landscape the same. You know, the old rose gardens are important. People love to visit them, and I think, you know, I'm very passionate about like keeping these rose gardens going and making them, taking them into a new age basically, but also keeping that mystique and romance. So.
Of course, and making sure that people, when they come back to Rockingham, they can, you know,
that's
take
right.
their photo, embracing each other in front of a rose here.
Well,
in
we
the rose garden.
do have people that have come here for years, and they've come back and they say, you know, we had our wedding here, or we had our wedding anniversary, and you know, they like to look at the roses and remember those times. So,
of course.
It's very good.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Dean. This was incredibly educational.
Thank you.
And I am looking forward to coming back here and seeing how Julie's rose is blooming.
How it's blooming, yes.
Exactly.
We should definitely mark it off.
Brilliant. All right, thanks, Dean,
okay.
so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Out of the winter chill, I head inside to the warmth of the Great Hall to meet Rockingham's archivist, Basil Morgan, who has kindly looked out for some fascinating documents from the time when Lady Faith Montague and Sir Michael Seymour lived here in the mid-20th century.
So Basil, how long have you been the archivist here at Rockingham?
Next year it'll be 30 years.
30
Not
years.
all as archivist. It started as a guide, but most of the time as archivist.
Most of the time. And has it been just fascinating over the past 30 years what you've uncovered?
Absolutely, yes. Because being an historian anyway, I used to teach at Rockingham School.
Right.
So the whole history side interests me a lot, yes.
With Michael Seymour, did he keep a lot of his correspondence, his letters, journals, as well as Lady Faith?
Very much so, yes, he did. She wrote to him, she was a regular correspondent. Her husband, the fourth baronet, she wrote to him all the way through the war, virtually daily, whether he was up in the Orkney Islands or whether he was at the Battle of Jutland or out in the Black Sea rescuing Tsarist. They were incredibly correspondent, and he somehow managed to get letters back virtually every day to her.
That's incredible.
Heaven knows how the system worked.
Yeah, no, exactly, but it worked. And then with Faith, were you able to uncover some of her letters? Because they were married in 1947, is that right?
I think it was, yes, just after he came out of the
Yes,
Navy. Yes,
exactly.
The interesting thing about Faith is her connection with the novelist E.M. Forster.
I've read that, yes.
Who was a very big novelist before 1914, really, most of his novels, and they were about the Edwardian upper class, casting a fairly cynical eye over them. And we've got a lot of letters, about 70 altogether, that Forster wrote to Lady Faith. It started off when she had written a short story, and Forster was a great pal of her father's. So he said, well, send it to Forster, I know Forster. And we've got a letter where he writes back saying what it's like as a short story, being quite gentle with her.
Yes.
And writing back and saying, well, it's a short story, so you've got to be pretty concise. You haven't got much space, you know.
Right,
And from that, a friendship base became, and he came and stayed here very often.
Did he?
Yes, he often came here to stay for Christmas. In the end, he was inviting himself. Can I please come for 3 or 4 days? Yeah.
So they really forged a friendship.
They really
Faith
did form a
and
friendship,
Forster.
yes.
Can I touch these?
Yes, by all means. In fact, I think, yes, that's the one you're looking at is the first one.
I can see you've numbered them.
Yeah, the very first one, commenting on her short story.
How, it's just wonderful just to see his
Absolutely.
handwriting
His
here.
writing is fairly readable.
Yeah, it is fairly readable. And then his signature here. Yes, I should like to come to Rockingham and to see you and Sir Michael. It is very kind of you to suggest it. Sure. How brilliant.
And this went on until, I think he died in 1970. It was very, very lengthy. Certainly, best part of 15 years.
How brilliant. He says here, could I come on the 25th for a couple of nights?
So yes, he really did invite himself by the end.
I generally spend Christmas, it sounds like by itself, in Buckingham, but he's asking if he could come.
And he always left something behind. He always has to write a letter, or she has to write a letter saying, we found your pen you left behind, or we found your, he always seems to have left something behind. Whether this was hoping he could pick it up the next time, or the next, I don't know.
Oh, this is so brilliant. And then what do we have here?
Well, that's something I just found, or I just noticed, an impression of Forster by Lady Faith herself.
I'm just reading a little bit because the thing that comes out is Hinchingbrook was the family seat. So that's where the first Earl of Sandwich lived up until my husband's grandfather. So that would be Faith's brother. Sold it in he sold it in 1955 and then bought Mapperton, which is where we are now, another historic house in Dorset, in 1956. But Faith lived at Hinchingbrook, which is 15 minutes from here, I believe, really quite close. So anytime I read anything or spot anything with Hinchingbrook, I'm really, of course, interested. And I just, if you don't mind, if I could just read something that I've just spotted. Our family home, Hinchingbrook, was only 15 miles from Cambridge, where Forster, a fellow of King's College, Cambridge, had rooms and was now living. He and my father were old friends, but had not met for some years. We drove through the great Gothic main archway and pulled up at the front door. During the war, Hinchingbrook was a hospital. And after the war, my brother, to whom the estate had been transferred, that would be Hinch, my husband's grandfather, found himself forced, partly for economic reasons and much to his regret, to sell the property. I'm going to get quite emotional here. Anyway, because it's just, it's one of those things that it's the family home, and then you just found this and you read this. And in 1962, the Huntingdon County Council bought the house for a comprehensive school. But in December 1955, that's when he sold it, the great house was empty and deserted. Before entering the house, I took Forster onto the terrace where Charles I and Oliver Cromwell once fought as boys. We stood on the terrace steps and admired the great semicircular bow window, the royal arms and initials ER on it in honor of Queen Elizabeth's visit in 1564. We then wandered across the lawn to see the medieval nunnery and from there into the main house. It was dark and lonely, but beautiful. Every room shuttered, and we looked at the furniture and pictures by electric light. Some of the furniture had been taken away, but most of the family portraits, the Hogarth, the Leleys, and the Van Dykes, still hung on the walls. Our tour took an hour and Forster had not said a word. Then he rounded on me explosively. To abandon it like that, to leave it empty, just to clear it out. What will happen to all its art treasures? He was desperately concerned. Houses are important, you know. A house gives security. It's an anchorage. And then she says, I was seeing a new Forster. For a second, I had a glimpse of his real identity underneath. And late that night, I wrote in my diary, the shade of Mrs. Wilcox, Howard's End. To her family, it was only a house, but to her, it had been a spirit for which she sought a spiritual heir. I'm so glad you found this copy, because I will immediately have to send this to my father-in-law, who grew up at Hinchingbrook. So Hinch's son is my father-in-law, the 11th Earl of Sandwich, and he grew up in Hinchingbrook. And I think these few paragraphs here really do sum up how I think we feel as a family, the sadness around losing Hinchingbrook House. But anyway, Basil, I just want to thank you so much. This has, I think, made my day.
Good.
I'm actually, I'm going to be just thinking about this the rest of the day, but this
I literally found that 10 minutes ago. It's catalogued, but I was looking through the Forster file for the letters.
Right.
And suddenly found that, and I thought, is that by Lady Faith? And it's signed by Lady Faith. Yeah.
Incredible. So thank you.
Not at all.
It's really hard for me to articulate the emotion that I felt today when I sat with Basil and we were looking through some of the letters that Forster had written to Faith. Of course, I have this huge interest in Faith and learning a little bit more about her because she was the daughter of Alberta Sturgis, the 9th Countess of Sandwich, who was an American like me and married into the Montague family. There was a whole range of emotions that overcame me when I started to read her memories of really the first time that she met Forster, and she brought him to an empty Hinchingbrook. Of course, that's my last name, Viscountess Hinchingbrook, and when I started to read really the sadness around that and the regret of having had to sell Hinchingbrook for economic reasons, and there was a real sadness that I felt, and I was overcome by emotion. But I'm so happy that Basil was actually able to find that. But for me, it was a sense of sadness and a sense of really remembrance of how these historic houses went through so much over the last century. Some survived and some were able to stay in the family, like Rockingham Castle, and some weren't, like Hinchingbrook, and they were either demolished or, like Hinchingbrook, made into a school. It was just wonderful to be able to read that account.
It's believed there's been a church on this site at Rockingham since the 13th century. But after the destruction of the English Civil War, in 1650, it was rebuilt. And, just as with the castle itself, each generation has added to it since.
There's something quite wonderful and really magical about coming into a church, but in particular this church. This is the parish church of Rockingham Castle, and it lies just beyond the castle walls. It was a lovely walk to come here, but I am here for a purpose, and that is to find the memorial that was made and created for Michael and Faith and their 3 young sons who didn't make it. So I'm here searching that out right now.
All around the side chapel are the most beautiful sculptures, but some were pieced together following the Civil War, when it's thought Sir Lewis Watson brought together fragments of the memorial to his grandmother, Dorothy Montague, with that of his father, Sir Edward Watson.
Oh, here we go. Wow. There, right away. And here it reads, remember Michael Clem Seymour, 1909 to 1999, and his wife, Faith Montague, 1911 to 1983. There are 3 baby boys. The care they took of Rockingham and the happiness they found there and at Witherston. Now, Witherston is a part of Mapperton, so there still is land that we have that is part of Mapperton Estate that is called Witherston. And the people who live at Witherston now, at the house that Michael and Faith were at, are friends of ours. And the many friends whose lives they touched. And what I really love here is that Faith is memorialized here alongside her husband, Michael, but also she's memorialized here next to actually one of her relations. So it's extraordinary to see that Lewis created this monument for his grandmother, Dorothy Montague, and his father, Edward Watson, side by side together, using the remains of other family monuments that had been destroyed by the parliamentarians. But it's just lovely for me to see that there are 2 Montagues here memorialized in the Watson sort of family vault, if you like.
When the Norman castle was transformed into an Elizabethan home in the 16th century, the room every fashionable house needed was a long gallery. And it's here where James tells me of a very special visitor to the castle in the mid-19th century.
Well, it's wonderful to bring you up here to one of our literary gems. It's so nice to have an association with someone who actually is such a giant of our literary history. Charles Dickens.
Incredible. Right away, as soon as I saw that, I thought there must be a story about Charles Dickens here.
We're not a particularly literary family, but it is rather nice. Richard Watson, who is the picture, the gentleman on the right, was the younger son of Lord Sons. Okay. Met Charles Dickens in Lausanne. Lavinia and Richard were on the Grand Tour.
Okay.
The equivalent of the Grand Tour.
Yes.
And they were staying in Lausanne, and then the villa next door was Charles Dickens and his wife. And they got on fantastically well.
This was to become a lifelong friendship, with Charles Dickens inspired by his visits to Rockingham, remarking to a friend in 1849, "Of all of the country houses and estates I have yet seen in England, I think this is by far the best."
And there are 2 really quite strong associations. 2 books are very associated with Rockingham. One of them is David Copperfield, and the second is Bleak House.
Right.
David Copperfield, Charles Dickens dedicated the first edition to Richard and Lavinia Watson.
Incredible.
And by chance, not really, but I have it here. And this is the original edition. And there's a wonderful story with it, which I only really, if I'm honest, I only discovered when I got the book out today, because I bothered to read the letter in the flyleaf, that Richard and Lavinia's children loathed Dickens with a passion. They were far from liberals, they were high Tories,
Right.
hunting Victorian landowner gentlemen who did not like anything that sniffed of any liberalism. And they sold all of the Dickens memorabilia.
You're kidding
so
me.
all the letters went to America. All of the books, anything that was to say to it, disappeared. And this one appeared in a bookshop with a book dealer in London in 1902, and it was bought by the 3rd Sir Michael. So Michael Clem Seymour's grandfather.
Wow.
Who was married to Watson.
So 52 years later, in one sense, after it was signed, it was found.
And it came back.
And the bookseller contacted.
Yes.
Right.
And there's a lovely note in the letter sort of saying that it's obviously very important because it's got the private dedication.
Absolutely. Look at it. It says, affectionately inscribed to the Honourable Mr. and Mrs. Richard Watson of Rockingham, Northamptonshire. As a token.
As a token of such, so what's that, regard and friendship.
Yeah. It's a token
Charles
of
Dickens.
Charles Dickens. So he was really, really close to
Terribly
Richard
close.
and Lavinia.
Yeah. And when he came to stay, Some of them were relatively short, some of them were slightly longer, and he said a total of 20 days here. And he took inspiration from his husband. He staged plays for the benefit. Now, who did he do?
How fun.
I know. Well, we've got a playbill here.
And would he stage them here in the Long Gallery, do you think?
He certainly did one of them. They were staged here.
Amazing,
But he also staged another set. We're in the panel room.
How incredible. I'm just taking it all in. That Charles Dickens was here.
But
and
this
there was
is
a
one,
play.
this is a wonderful,
brilliant.
But this is a wonderful room to entertain.
Yeah.
It creates its own atmosphere.
It does.
He was such a showman, but he was always the lead act.
Look at this. Rockingham Castle will be presented Monday evening, January 13th, 1851, used up. And you're right, Sir Charles Coldstream, Mr. Charles Dickens. To be followed by the interlude of A Day After the Wedding, Colonel Freelove, Mr. Charles Dickens. Then you have, the performance will conclude with Mrs. Inchbald's farce, Animal Magnetism, and the doctor, the lead is Mr. Charles Dickens.
That's the original.
So this would
That's
be
the playbill that would have been stuck.
Right, just for the household.
Well, I think that there may have been for other local friends as well.
But still,
you know, sort of advertising it. I bet you he's never won to Mr. Shilling.
No, but it's brilliant. And also at the end, it says, the theatre will be opened at 8:15, and the performance will commence at 8 o'clock. God save the Queen.
The Queen. So he used Rockingham as an inspiration, and it was actually very accurate in terms of some of the descriptions of the rooms and some of the characters. So Mrs. Rouncewell, the housekeeper, was a very accurate description of the housekeeper here at the time.
Right.
And I've got we're sitting in the Long Gallery at the moment. And there's a lovely quote in here when he talks about how the evening shadows draw across the pictures. And as this is west facing with these big windows, you do get and as the sun goes down out over across the valley, it sort of draws, the shadows draw across the pictures. And describing the portrait of Lady Dedlock over the fireplace opposite us, he says here, but of all the shadows in Chesney Wold, the shadow in the long drawing room upon my lady's picture is the first to come and the last to be disturbed. At this hour and by this light, it changes into threatening hands raised up and menacing the handsome face with every breath that stirs. But
so he's really describing, obviously, this room.
This room.
And that portrait there.
I would
possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, you bet
highly
on it,
likely.
You'd bet on it. Yes. How brilliant.
So it's rather fun. So there's a very strong association with Dickens in here.
The friendship between Charles Dickens and Richard and Lavinia Watson was one of real affection, which is reflected in Dickens' works, but also in his private correspondence.
And he wrote the most touching letter at his distraught sadness at Richard's early death in 1852. He continued to correspond with Lavinia right up until his death in 1870. He wrote 2 months before, and actually we've got a copy of the letter here, where it says, "My dear Mrs. Watson, with the greatest pleasure I engage myself and Mary to you for the 2nd of May. You cannot too completely make me one of your family party. The dear old Rockingham days are always fresh in my heart, believe me. Ever faithfully yours, Charles Dickens." And that was written 2 months before he died. It's
incredible.
That relationship went on long after Richard Watson's death, and they were very close friends. Absolutely, and I can't tell you, we are so proud at Rockingham to have that association with one of Britain's greatest writers.
Absolutely, but also that you were able to, I think treasures here at these historic houses are so important. But when a treasure gets sold and then you get it back, it's even more special and more extraordinary to even have that back in the family. So wonderful, incredible.
I couldn't agree more.
Each generation at Rockingham has left their mark on the building itself, but also out in the surrounding landscape. To mark the 950th anniversary of Rockingham and the year of Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee, James is planting trees across the estate and finding inspiration from those who have gone before him.
So, Julie, this is a plan of the park and land holdings at Rockingham in 1815. And the reason I got it out is that it's really exciting. We've been looking at trying to do some really significant planting, and one of the ambitions is to plant 900 950 trees. Now, you know, and I know, that you can easily plant 950 whips in a belt and they'll disappear. Well, actually, we want to do something slightly significant. And so one of the things that I've been doing, it's been really fun, is finding some of the old maps, some of the old photographs, finding where avenues that we used to have, which have gone or disappeared, or lines of trees that have disappeared. So what I think is interesting about this map is that actually to shape the site of the park with the castle here, there's quite a lot of change.
Yes.
But there's this wonderful double avenue that runs in from South Lodge. And if you look at the photograph here, that is the double avenue
my goodness, it's
in
beautiful.
1910, and they were all elms.
Look at that double avenue. I don't think
this
I've ever seen
yeah,
that before.
and this photograph, you've got the remnants of it, but they all died in 1976 of Dutch elm disease.
Of the Dutch elm disease, I see.
And Dad put back a sort of, it's not really worked, but a mix of plain and beach.
Right.
Norwegian beach doesn't look good, and it's not a double avenue. It's sort of half a stand, half. And my ambition is not to go all the way down, but actually just to do it at the top. And so we're going to do that.
So that's where all 950 trees...
No, that's about 36.
All right, okay.
Well, maybe a bit more, because you have to place them every... We also took an avenue out here of dead sycamore. We're going to put those back. And I really love this idea of the sort of single belts of trees around the park. Now, we've got a belt there, but I'm going to plant on the other side a whole line, a single line, all the way from some sultry coppice all the way down back to the castle.
Oh, so this will be double line as well. Fantastic.
Now, we need to go and plant a tree to mark the Platinum Jubilee. So would you like to come and help me plant a tree in the wild garden?
I would absolutely love to do that. I can't think of anything better. Fun.
Let's go and do that.
The formal gardens here at Rockingham were redesigned after the Civil Wars in the 17th century. They are made up of a series of terraces around the castle.
We were talking about Dickens earlier.
Yes.
This terrace was part of his inspiration. This is where he conceived the ghost of Lady Dedlock. And this elephant hedge, we always say, we call it the Ghost Walk, or we call it the elephant hedge, because it was, I think, more regular in the 19th century, and it got somewhat misshapen, but actually it looks like, if you look at it closely, it looks like elephants. It's wonderful. It's a well, we don't know how old, 400-year-old yew hedge?
It absolutely does. Oh my, how wonderful.
And then if we go through this gate here, we're now going into Wild Garden, and this was the access that the parliamentarians sacked the castle in 45.
Right.
And they came up this ravine.
And they went over the wall.
And they climbed over the wall. Well, I think Lewis Watson was lying in his bed thinking he was safe as houses inside his castle.
Walking through an historic garden like this, you realize how fashions and tastes change. By the end of the 18th century, formal terraces were being supplanted by the desire for natural-looking gardens. Lady Faith Montague and her husband, Sir Michael Cum Seymour, did much to revive the gardens when they lived here after the Second World War.
Both Michael and Faith adored the wild garden. This was where their passion was, in growing, planting trees and recreating it. We're now, 60 years later, having to cope with the legacy of that. So many of the trees have come to the end of their lives, particularly the sort of prunuses. So Lizzie and I are having really good fun going around filling the gaps and taking out some of the older trees. There used to be a whole line of beech along here, which was much earlier, but it's now given me the opportunity to plant underneath here. We won't benefit from it, but the next generation will.
But so this is where some of the 950 trees will be planted?
Very much so.
Fantastic.
And looking at them, we've already started, you can't see them, Miller's estate there. We lost two big beech here, so we put a couple of specimens in. Now we'll wander down, we'll go back down the steep bank here to the pond. And you've got, so this is where the wild swimming happened, which you so love.
This is where I would love to wild swim.
And there was a series of fish ponds down below us here. And this pond was actually created as a labour device in the agricultural depression of the late 19th century. And William Paxton, who built the Palm House at Kew, was engaged to design a series of ponds here. And there's a spring up on the bank just below that very tall sequoia that I was showing you earlier.
Right. So
and then it comes through here, and you'll find, if you look carefully, you might see the ladder because it got thrown in.
Oh my goodness! But can you swim? I mean, I would swim in this. I would want to.
No,
I would.
well, I would. You're in here into about leaf litter about that deep.
Okay. Beautiful though. It is rather peaceful.
It's
beautiful,
very,
and I love that there's that little bench that we passed.
Yeah, it's difficult to imagine at this time of year. You know, your deep winter and everything's in hibernation. You come in spring, in the summer, and this is just a sea of different leaf colours and things. And a lot of it's down to Michael's and Faith's brilliant planting of the mix of the trees. You have different greens at different contrasts.
Yes.
And it just has the most wonderful, as you say, until the midges come.
Until the midges come, exactly. Oh, I know about them.
Now let's go and plant our tree.
So how many have you planted so far of the 950?
Not remember. We've done about 30 in here.
Right.
In the garden.
Okay.
This is the 31st.
This is the 31st.
We're doing 38 in avenues. We're putting in a couple of shelter belts.
Right.
We're going to do some clumps in the park.
Yes.
Where it's got rather thin. So here we go. Here we go.
All right, what am I planting here? What am I planting?
You're planting a Scots pine.
Scots pine. Fantastic.
And it's been come out of its pot.
Yes, yes.
So if you would like, if I pop it in there.
Right.
And then if you'd like to take a little bit of that, use the spade. We can then, and then I might have to get the professionals to come and sort me out because you think I might know what I'm doing. It's not.
Well, how
not
do you
too
know?
sure.
How do you know I
Well,
know what I'm doing?
Because you told me you've planted lots of trees, including one in Vinchensbrook.
Exactly.
And you're rewilding at Mapperton.
And I'm rewilding at Mapperton, you know. I've got to get used to this. This is brilliant practice for me.
There you are, so
brilliant
good.
practice. Got to
We
go
need a little
all
at the
around.
back. We need a little bit at the back here.
This is fantastic. Right.
You've done a brilliant job there.
Now, should I use all the soil?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
that's what I was
it needs.
thinking.
I'm
Wanna
sort of
make
half
sure.
tempted. I might tip it up into that.
Well, yeah. Why don't you could do that because I'm kind of getting to the end.
I think you've done with the digging bit.
I think I've done with the
I
spade.
think it's not.
Fantastic. Top it up. Look, it's lovely. Yep.
I'll get Gary to come and sort it out. He'll probably dig it out and do it again. That's what he did last time.
I'm still going to always remember that I planted it. Don't let me know if Gary does that.
No, I won't. There we are. You are
done
a
it.
star. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you,
You
James.
planted my 31st tree for the 950th of Rockingham, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Isn't that just wonderful? Part of the Queen's, and we'll register it with the Queen's Green Canopy.
That's right. And
Thank
I'm going
you
to
so
remember
much.
this day forever.
Ah, brilliant. Oh, that's wonderful.